Okay,
I feel like, because we're all, I mean, here I'm getting a zoning administrator, meeting me, and you're like Paul, so.
That's why I said-
Sat around all night long. But, maybe Paul take G with him.
oh, that's fine. Anybody can go and sit in in the audience. Anybody can go and sit in the audience. Any member of the public can go and sit in the audience.
Okay.
Okay,
The concern I have, since we're still in the discussion, is the fire department is not functioning in a way that benefits the town. They operate out of Hurricane, and I think, or I believe, they use the politics from Hurricane to influence decisions for these other towns.
Mhm.
I personally watched their fee schedule get tossed around by the people that they like working with versus the ones they don't. You see the people who are trying to develop, go in and present their plans. Somebody will help them through, say, you gotta do this, 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 and this, they come back. Somebody else says, oh, no, you gotta do this, 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 and this. That needs to change. And I don't care who sits on the board. I do think that it should be somebody different. I think we ought to have these different boards have different members and council.
Okay.
But whoever goes in there needs to be, and you're gonna be the one vote that's not, you're gonna be the one person that's constantly looked down on because it's all old firefighters who are on that board.
okay,
And somebody needs to just start saying, look, what you're doing is get your stuff in order. And I've had many discussions with, and you know, but I won't discuss the name of the person, but a commissioner member from the county who says all the members look in order, but I know there's problems and I don't know how to fix them. We need to get good people on board. And so that's,
And I just,
I'm sorry, you're saying you heard this from somebody at one of the county commissioners meeting? Okay,
when you're looking at our building permits and everything like that, they're all done through, the zoning administrator, or if we had a building inspector, other than our contract building inspector, they're the ones that deal directly with the fire district, so it'd be handy to have someone.
I understand, but my whole point was I wanted to understand what happens before I then say, okay, I'll pass it on to somebody else.
And that's why I was teeter-tottering.
Okay.
I understand where you were coming from, which I can completely get that, because I would like to know as well.
Mhm.
And then, so I've been teeter-tottering back and forth, but we've already motioned it, so, and done, so do we want to? We haven't done that
Do we
yet.
have-
No, I made a-
No other motion on the floor right now. It's just a proposal.
No, there's no motion on the floor. I said I proposed Paul, and we were waiting to see if,
And we can also amend the resolution for 2 meetings, so that way it terminates at the end of 2 meetings and you appoint somebody else.
all right, now I will bend on that. If you want to make it to where 3 months or a short period of time, we put you on for it,
Mhm.
you got to select somebody from the council.
Okay.
I'll go for it.
okay, I can deal with
I just
that.
think years, like, you've
Yeah.
got things that are being held up.
Okay, I don't have a problem with that.
So,
We need a commitment that.
Well, you run it in the
Spot.
Yeah, it'd be-
Can we commit that you will try to go to those or Cameron
I'll
will?
go to one.
I just think that I'm with you. I think that for Cameron asking to go to those or you, not to say that you're not, but you're the zoning administrator.
But he had, yeah, and I've talked to him and Cameron both about what their issues are. What, yeah,
This is directed at
Paul. Oh, Gene.
Our commitment that you're going to go to them. Okay.
I'll make a motion that we adopt resolution R 2022-D with the caveat that it is for a 3-month period.
so sunset at 3 months.
Sunsets at 3 months.
Okay, so let's see. We will change then on the therefore be it hereby resolved. We'll say, we will delete the language that says for the calendar year 2022. We will say for the next 3 months. Okay. I think so. If I go to April, May, and June, I should think that's enough to get an idea.
You know what? Can I alter that and say 3 months or 3 meetings? Because
Okay,
that's another thing.
sometimes they get
It's very good about canceling meetings, so at least 3 meetings.
So,
That's what I.
nobody, did anybody second it?
I'll second it.
So-
With that, the last one.
So it'll be for 3 meetings.
Or 3, yeah.
3 months or 3 meetings, whichever occurs first. No, we don't want to say
No.
that. We want
Just-
the next
just
3 meetings.
the
Okay,
next 3 meetings.
okay.
I'll
Okay.
second it.
All right. So Paul,
Aye.
Jean, Jean, I, Misty. Okay. All right. So I will take a motion to adjourn
So made.
the public meeting. Any second? All in favor? Aye. Okay. Meeting adjourned.
Thanks, Vince. Hey. No,
Oh, you just checked you what it was. Yeah, you just.
we did?
You just signed up to work the letter for you.
I have been trying to go to a fire board meeting since December, and they keep getting canceled.
Yes. That's what you had to do, to change that language on that whole thing. Yes, that's why you changed the language.
Because they're. Put it right in the middle of the afternoon.
I was saying,
Yeah, 5, 4.
Yeah, 4 or 5, yeah.
It's kind of a weird time, I agree.
but, so we appointed me to be the representative of the fire board. Someone else on the council, so I said, I'm running, and you have to. Then I'll put somebody. So this is gonna be somebody else.
I've been trying to go. Hopefully this next one I will go to.
Whatever's the house. For future development, where it's.
But that means that the people that live here are still gonna have the special traffic. So you're thinking that you can do it this way, or people can go that way? Okay, all right, well, that's fine.
That's what I'm wondering, because we have to keep some access.
Yes, you have to keep that. Yeah, why?
Maybe that was-
Because again, so the people that are coming down here, if they're coming, they ask, they're not gonna take this and go over here, they're gonna go on down that way. So that might work.
That's what I'm. Yeah, that would take some doing, that does go through a section.
So would it be possible for you to have meetings where all you guys talk about that?
Yeah, we can have a meeting where we talk just about, assistant officers.
Yeah, so I guess talk about.
Yeah, we'll include that.
So if you tell them why, just start talking to them, that'd be Have you voted?
If you are a town council, you must leave. We're gonna start the meeting, so everybody take a seat.
Hey, Crystal?
Yeah.
You wanna come up? Can't walk in, I'm not good at this either. Oh, yeah, there probably is. Got it. Yeah.
Is it Nathan? Capital B.
Capital B. All right, welcome everyone out to the planning and zoning meeting for Virgin Town. It is April 13th. Yep, April 13th at 6:30 PM. Members that are currently present are everyone. Ron, Wyatt, Cameron, Sean, Ken. All right, so we'll go with conflicts of interest. Anybody have any conflicts of interest to declare, Bronwyn? Bronwyn says no. Wyatt? Nope. No. Sean? No. Kent?
No.
Cameron? No. So number 3 is review and possible approval of draft minutes for March 9th, 2022. I did not read over those minutes. I apologize, I did not get to that. I was reading over yours. Sean?
Yeah, it's pretty good. There's just a couple of spelling errors and there was one word left out that should be in there, but I think there's only 3 spots right now. In the Word version, they were underlined or highlighted.
Okay.
So,
So you highlighted them on the share.
did you hear that, Darcy?
Anyone else have
In
any?
the Word version, they're just in red. There's only, I think, 3 or 4 spots.
One of our alternates, Angelia, is also at the meeting today. Anyone else have anything on the draft minutes? You guys, just quiet.
I'm good.
Ken? All right, I'll take a motion if someone wants to make a motion on number 3.
Motion that we approve the draft minutes for the March meeting. That was with the changes, yeah.
I have a motion to approve the draft minutes with changes and a second. Wyatt made that motion, Ron seconded the motion. We'll vote. Ron? Wyatt?
Aye.
Cameron, yes.
Aye.
Yes. Sean, yes. All right, if someone wants to give me a motion On number, item C.
Make a motion to close the public meeting and open the public hearing.
Sean made the motion. And did someone second that?
Rollins.
Ron, second the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Alright, so we'll move on to our public hearing at this time. So the first item on our public hearing is gonna be ordinance 2022-02 to include zone change from rural residential to commercial. On lot 34 WSR 9E, commercial lot 34 West SR 9. Sorry. Parcel number B90-2-1. Correct, this is Adams property, it's the property right next to the old post office.
Yeah, we've talked about it a lot. This is just
This is
the,
public hearing. This is not your turn.
I think there's a letter about it. Yeah.
Why do you want to read that letter then? Since you got the letter.
I would love to, Cameron. This is 22-02, right? This is from Lori Rose. Dear Commissioners and Town Council members, I cannot attend the public hearing, so am submitting these comments by letter for your consideration. While I can understand the desire on both the part of the landowners and the town to include this quarter-acre lot in the larger zone that now surrounds it, I do not believe in its current configuration and under VULU regulations can be legally rezoned commercial because it does not meet the minimum lot requirements of the zone. Though it is legally non-conforming, though it is a legally non-conforming residential lot, to change the zoning and or use is a triggering event that causes it to lose legal status. The only current legal avenue I can think of to change the zoning / use of this land is for it to be absorbed or possibly reconfigured with a lot line adjustment into a larger parcel that meets minimum lot area requirements of the zone. VULU 8.04 states, lot standards except as otherwise provided in this ordinance, every lot existing or intended to be created shall have such an area with depth as is required by this ordinance for the district in which such a lot is located. I'm not this long-winded. Currently, for this situation, VULU does not provide otherwise. Alternatively, VULU could be amended in the manner that alleviates this issue, though it should be carefully thought through. If this was Main Street in downtown Cedar City, there are no setbacks, setbacks, buildings are connected, and parking occurs on the street or in a shared lot behind the businesses. A quarter-acre commercial lot could be functional, but this is not the pattern of commercial development in Virgin. Businesses are required to provide adequate parking on site, buildings setback from property lines, and a substantial landscape buffer along SR 9. A quarter acre is likely insufficient to accommodate most types of business permitted in Virgin's commercial zone. There may be issues that arise if the owners intend to change the current building's use to commercial, as the building is non-conforming to setbacks. Change of use could trigger ordinance compliance. In summary, I do not believe under current VULU and state law that you can legally rezone non-conforming quarter acre lot to commercial zone at this time. Thanks, Lori Rose.
Thanks, Lori. Any other public comment on this zone change? We'll move on to the next one. This is item number B, public comment about SR 9 appearance and access ways from the west end of town to Pocketville Road. So We're working on a master transportation plan. And so this is part of that plan. So we want to keep all comments focused on the area specified and along the highway. We will be moving to other areas at later times, right? So but at this time, we want to keep it focused on this area. And additionally, we're looking for ideas about look and accessibility to other properties. So if you're just gonna tell us that the speed limit's too fast, we already understand that concern. So we get it, right? We get it about the speed limit. There's just not a lot we can do with that at this junction. So if we could focus on the appearance and access roads, that would be great. April?
Hello, everybody. My name is April McKeon. I'm very pleased that the Planning and Zoning Commission has taken the initiative to ask for public comment on SR 9 appearance and access. I was inspired to do some research on roadways and access, considering that we're going to be discussing this. So I couldn't find in the Virgin Municipal Codes what the construction design standards that have been approved by the town. I'm not sure if any of you
That's currently being worked on.
is currently being worked on. So in the meantime, are we using the little black book that's in the Virgin office? Or are we using the Washington County Construction Design Standards?
I believe they're using St. George standards.
St. George. Okay, well, I didn't look at St. George. I looked at Washington County and I looked at Virgin, the ones that in the office. And I talked to Carl, our engineer, and he did not know what construction design standards that we're using. So basically what I have discussing is based on Washington County, which is basically comes off of the Utah Department of Transportation construction standards. So anyway, I had a brief discussion with the town engineer. And as I said, I used the Washington County Construction Design Standards as a guide. And I wasn't at the planning and zoning meeting last month, but I listened and watched the YouTube video or YouTube meeting. And my understanding is that in the beginning at the west end of Virgin, adjacent to Desert Garden Estates, and so we're starting at the very west end of town, I suppose, it was suggested that a roadway for a secondary access to Desert Gardens could be placed east of the wash and into the subdivision. So I spoke briefly with Carl about this. He indicated that because there is only a 20-foot easement between the Burt's and the Quinn property in Desert Gardens, that roadway could only be used qualify as an emergency access, not a public street. So if I misunderstood the meeting, I possibly could have, but my understanding was that it was proposed that that become an actual street. So moving on to the next street, which is 1420 West, which is currently a singular access to Desert Garden Estates. And the current plans for the Woodbury commercial development indicates that 1420 West will be utilized as an access to that development. However, the Washington County Construction Design Standards require that a 60-foot wide road right-of-way for access to commercial property is required. 1420 West has a 55-foot right-of-way currently. And furthermore, the traffic study that was done by Labrie doesn't account for traffic entering and exiting the subdivision. So I also had a brief discussion with Carl about that. And he indicated that at a minimum, 1420 West should have a left-hand turn lane onto SR 9. And also the Washington County Design Standards refer to some important considerations that I think are applicable to all of the roads in Virgin. For example, one thing. It says, access to multifamily or commercial development shall use street cross sections with 60-foot or more of right-of-way. And then it says in roadwork network design, roadwork network shall be designed in accordance with the general planning concepts, guidelines, and objectives, providing within this subsection, the quality of life for residential occupants shall be a primary concern when designing a residential roadway network, which I think is important for all of our roadways, including safety. An emphasis on proper street hierarchy should be adhered to, namely local streets should access residential collectors should access major collectors should access minor arterials, et cetera, et cetera. Also, a substantial increase in average daily traffic due to development of adjacent property on established streets not originally designed to accommodate such increases should be avoided. And that comes to mind with 1420 West, because the original design of that street development was for the subdivision. And now if you're adding a commercial project, then they recommend that that should be avoided. The other thing that we haven't really discussed is that pedestrians and bicycle traffic should be considered in the planning and development of all streets. And I believe that we have a proposed bike path that is going on SR 9 south of the highway along all of the streets. And I really think that that needs to be taken into consideration when we are talking about access to SR 9. Just for safety issues. And that's as far as I got, honestly, because I was time crunched to really go much further. I mean, Sheep Bridge Road, I believe, has I'm not even sure what the right of way on Sheep Bridge Road. I couldn't exactly find anything that designated that. But if you look on the map, it appears that it's probably 60 foot wide or greater. So I don't know. If I had more time, I'd go to the next street and the next street and the next street. But anyway, I appreciate your time. I'd like you to, take some of those into considerations. Actually, I would like to know what the construction standards are so that I can be more educated and better prepared to address that. And I have a lot of design experience as a roadway engineer and pavement design management, and I'd be more than happy to sit with, any of you folks and talk in more detail about that. So, thank you.
Thanks, sir. Anyone else? No one else? Oh, there we go.
Darlene Pope, and I wanted to underscore and thank April for her just research, and I appreciate it. And just as I was listening to last month's meeting, it really stood out to me that 12-foot bike path is not being considered in anything that we seem to be planning on. And I know the town council had a presentation, I believe, in December on it. And that's going to also impact everything. And I'm really hoping, I don't know what the design will be, but if you go through some other communities, what's there besides a road is very inviting and enhances the experience of the people traveling through, the people who are temporarily staying here, and the people who have chosen this place to call home. So please consider that. I do want to underscore the west entrance to Desert Garden. That is because I went and I did some research as well, and it's just my understanding of our CCRs and looking at the plats is that it is for utility access. And then in this case, a fire truck or an emergency exit. It is not a dedicated roadway. It never was. Thank you.
Thank you.
April McKeon again. I'm sorry. I had one question that I was thinking about on my way here. For the Weeping Buffalo development, I could not find any plans that indicated whether there'll be a acceleration and deceleration plan on that project. Is that a part of that development?
Yes, when I spoke with one of the guys from the they said there's planned lanes for there, and they're just working out the final plans on this.
Okay, one thing I found was very interesting. I looked at the proposed upcoming projects for UDOT. You can find it online. And I could only find from 2019 to 2050, they have one project on SR9 that is listed in their design or their project proposals. That project goes from somewhere around milepost 12, an additional passing lane going eastbound, I believe, to about milepost 14. And the other one is a westbound from somewhere like milepost 15 to milepost 16 plus. I don't know exactly. I probably should have looked that up and brought it to the meeting. So what that tells me is all the projects across this whole entire state, that they have one project on SR9. I mean, all of SR9 in their upcoming proposals for the next, how many years is that? 27 years? So I think what that tells me is that UDOT has so many fires around the state with population and growth and road projects and money. There's only so much of a pot of money that it seems to me that if any improvements are going to happen on SR9 that we would want as a town, that we're probably going to have to do that ourselves. I mean, or use some funding from Washington County or do some, grant money or, road projects are expensive. And I was really surprised that I could only find one project in all that time that had to do with SR9. So I don't know if UDOT is just thinking that all this is transient traffic going through and it's going to just go by and come back and they don't need to really do much more widening or any other projects. So I just thought that was an interesting sort of tidbit that the town might want to, just consider when they're looking at development here. So.
Thanks, you.
Anyone else? All right, we'll move on to number C. This is the proposed subdivision preliminary plat for Quell Mesa subdivision from Jeff Lee, located at B21262471, south of Rio de Janeiro.
Quick comment, there was another comment from where it was.
Oh, yeah.
It just, I don't think it's.
I'm not reading
Because
this
it's
one.
more addressing, general plan issues rather than access. But if all of us would like to read that one, then we can have it in the minutes. So that's public hearing, I think that would be appropriate.
It's short, I'll go ahead and read it. Yeah, we could do it that way, but it's pretty short. This is from Lori Rose. I cannot attend the public hearing, so I'm submitting this comment by letter for your consideration. Thank you for working together to envision how SR9 and Virgin will function as a future group. The earlier we addressed the questions of access, functionality, and enhancing the visual and physical human experience of our town along the highway, the more options we have. SR9 is designed to become Virgin Town's future main street. The importance of this should not be overlooked, having served in a public capacity on what used to be called the UDOT Enhancement Advisory Council. I traveled annually to Salt Lake to work with other professionals across the state, reviewing communities' applications of highway improvements. Communities presented proposals for design and landscaping, and UDOT provided funding assistance for deserving projects. The state is far more sympathetic to the community's concerns than I have recently heard represented at the planning commission. We need to let UDOT know what Virgin Town wants our main street to look, wants our main street to look and function. The public hearing is a good first step, but what I think is required is a professionally moderated design event that brings the citizens to the table to develop a community vision. I realize this is a big task and may need to be worked on in bite-sized pieces with a priority on identifying and coordinating limited collector street access points, locations to reduce the problems created by too many individual driveway entrances. Second priority is design. Landscape, medians, which help slow and calm traffic. Pedestrian crossings, parking, the trail design, shade trees, a larger system of trails and attached design elements are all topics that can be addressed in the second phase. In summary, I know this work is challenging, but directing future development so that it helps create a safe, effective, attractive, and welcoming main street for Virgin is vital to our future success in town. You like lose power for a minute or something?
No, I think the projector's going out.
Oh,
This is why it's making such a lot of noise.
that happens when you have bad power. Projectors don't like bad power. Alright, now we'll move on to number C, or letter C, proposed subdivision preliminary plat. We'll take public comment on that proposed subdivision.
I just have one thing I want to say that's got nothing to do with that. Here's a letter from we just got this. It's a letter from the town attorney who's not going to be here, and he's got his comments on everything on the agenda. It's addressed to you.
Thanks, Jim. No one's commenting on the proposal. You all came to look at us? Oh, good.
Hi, my name is Lauren Campbell. I'm the president of the Rio de Sion Homeowners Association. It appears from the plat map that I saw of the development up there, one of the concerns I have is that they appear to be using the private driveway that there's an easement for. That's for a private driveway, for a 24-foot driveway. It's not for a road to go up there. So the HOA would not approve an easement change to allow a road to go through there. So we may have other concerns as we go forward, but we wanted to make sure that the developer was aware of that.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is Ben Klepper. I'm a resident of Rio de Sion. My concerns with it, I have several. Even if the easement was approved, it'd be extensive and excessive construction along that roadway and access. I don't know how you would do that without blasting. I don't know that we need to be blasting in Terra Mesas here in Virgin yet. Also, it's right along a wash. I don't know how well that would work. It would take a lot of engineering. There'd be a lot more traffic there. So, and then what are the logistics for emergency vehicles coming up and down that amount of traffic on those roads? That's concerning to me as well. I'm also concerned about opening up, more traffic to the BLM there. I look at what's happening with Sheep's Bridge Road and how it's just become overused. And you're just getting dusted out over and over here in Virgin. I know there's plans to pave it at some point, but I have no idea when. I think that if we open that up, there's going to be a heck of a lot more traffic through there. And we're going to have a similar situation that we have on Sheep's Bridge Road. So that's concerning to me as well. And also the dark skies ordinance is, I like looking at the stars in Virgin. I think if you put houses on the mesa, I would think that the horizon would be considered part of the sky. And so if the whole city's looking up onto the horizon and looking into a subdivision of 25 homes that are lit up, you're no longer really looking at dark sky, you're looking into light. So to me, those are all reasons that I would oppose this development. Thank you.
I stole Keith's map, but I didn't have April McKeon. And, besides the road access issue, which is you need to have a specific right-of-way according to construction design standards. And it also has to do with grades, which depending on what construction standard documents you end up utilizing, your own St. George or Washington County. And that is a very steep grade, and it is outside of the grades that could be used for access to a subdivision, besides the fact that it doesn't fit the necessary right-of-way. And, just looking at these lots, I know this doesn't really impact me in particular, but that mesa has got pretty steep sloping sides. And if you look at if you could had it up on the map, on the screen, so like this lot 11, which is 1.77 acres, most of that lot, probably, 80-90% of that lot is on a steep slope. So by the time you actually have a house there, you might have a 1/4 acre lot, if that. That would be up to the people that buy it. But just taking a look at some of these lots, they say that they're, so large, but in actuality, considering the slope, they're really kind of tiny lots. And you have to kind of consider that when you're looking at septic systems and, wastewater treatment. And as the previous person indicated, that you already have only one access to Rio de Sion. And then if you add all these additional 25 lots, then you've just kind of increased. There's no emergency exit there. It's impossible to have one, I think. And I would want the town to basically take those issues into consideration when they're considering this subdivision. So.
Thanks, April.
Hi all, my name is Rob Bills. I'm the secretary of the Rio de Sion HOA. And I fully concur with Lauren, Ben, and April coming up here, and I'm not going to be repetitive for those reasons. But the one issue that I really want to emphasize, we've been coming up here since 2009, is the bridge. I don't know if any of you are familiar. On 2 occasions that I remember, we could not access our home. We were met by the fire department, told to turn around because the river was swollen, and we had to get a hotel those nights. And so now we have phase two, or the addition of the Rio de Sion, and then the added pressure. So I have serious concerns, not only for myself personally, but members of the HOA, the Rio de Sion. What if we do have an emergency situation? You know, how do we get across the river? So I'd like you to obviously seriously consider that if there was a, catastrophic event or something significant, and really limiting the access to emergency vehicles and us to get in or out or over that bridge. Okay, thank you very much.
Darlene Pope, and I just have a point of clarification because I know that you can have a subdivision that is traditional owner-occupied homes, but you can also have a subdivision that is solely short-term rentals. And I was just wondering which one this would be. Thank you.
I don't know if that's been declared yet. Thanks, Darlene.
Yes, my name is Jean, and I'm making this comment as a resident who lives here. If you look at the map, you'll see where Red Hill Lane comes down and hits Entrada. And you can see, since Crystal pulled the map down, that is my house right there on the other side of the road. And so it was one thing when we had one person living up there, and they would come down their driveway 2 or 3 times a week. With 25 houses, assuming that these were owner occupied, house, multiple trips, this would be ruinous for, I know that the homeowners association has already said that they're not going to grant a wider easement than what's there, but that would be ruinous on my property to enjoy my home if that many cars were coming down that driveway. And there has been a proposal back a year ago when this was proposed to be short-term rentals for the road to come down and go at the bottom of the hill instead of turning and going toward my house to go across. You can see kind of a little bit there at the curve in the road that's drawn going over to the right. I'm assuming that was to put a bridge over that little small wash right there and then connect up and come down the road that is the access to BLM, where you cross Alan Lee's land. But that access road also comes down and is straight on to my property. So, because you can actually see that little road, it's a very faint line over on the right. It's there. I can see it because I know exactly where it goes. And so in front of my house is a curved driveway, and one road, this road that's there right now hits one side, and the road for the BLM hits the other. So it didn't matter if you went this road or that road, both of them come straight at my house. So that's, I might not have an objection if the access road went over further away from my house, where then the cars would access Entrada, but not right in front of my house. That makes it very, it would make me very unhappy to live there. Let's just say that.
Thanks, Gene.
Hi, I'm Nanette Wood. I live in Rio de Sion as well.
What was your name again? Sorry.
Nanette Wood. And Rob brought up the bridge. We bought the house in 2009. There was one bridge. The second phase had not yet been developed. And at the time, we were told that in order to develop the second phase, they would need a second bridge. And there seemed to be some controversy as to whether the second bridge was for additional traffic or whether it was a fire safety issue. So eventually, from my understanding, the second phase was allowed to access the original bridge with the addition of fire sprinklers as a requirement. But I was never quite sure whether that that was all about fire sprinklers or whether it was increased traffic. So if we already have a traffic issue on the one bridge with the second phase, I can't even imagine what a new development up the hill would create in terms of traffic on that bridge. And I don't think any of us in Rio de Sion signed up for that kind of environment. Okay, thanks.
I have one more comment. It's related to Nanette's comment about the bridge. And Rob's comment about the emergency and everybody trying to go out over the bridge. And he was only talking about going over the bridge, but I'm more concerned with the access to Highway 9 with, we now have, what's it going to be? How many lots are there in Rio de Sion? 68? Okay. I thought you might know. So we've got potentially 68 homes there plus mine, so 69. And then we have to all go out and exit onto Highway 9. Then you've got the people from the hotel, and then we're going to have the people from the KOA campground. And then we would also have this all trying to use that one access point to Highway 9. It could get really, really crowded. It's even going to get crowded as it is with Rio once Rio de Sion is done. So.
Hi, my name is Joanne Allen. I live in Rio de Sion, and I've heard a lot about how busy our streets are going to be, but I'm not hearing anything about all the marathons that we have going, the people walking on the streets, along with all the traffic we're going to have right in front of Jean's house. And this last walking marathon, it was hard getting down the street for people in the roads when they have Red Bull going. We got bikes everywhere. And so anyway, I think that's something to consider also. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Paul Gooch. We live in the Jepson house right down the street. I just want to say that I'm pretty sure that almost all of us that have come to this community are looking for a peaceful environment to have our homes. So it's just my admonition to be careful that you don't turn this into a suburban hell and a community that's just so packed with people that we destroy the quality of life that has brought us here. That's my comment. Thanks.
Anyone else? There's a comment from Lori Rose. Thank you all for coming. You want to read it, Ken? I was just like Sean did, but since she volunteered.
I think he's about to read it.
Okay. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Dear Commissioners and Town Council, I cannot attend the public meeting, so I'm submitting these comments by letter for your consideration. So this whole page is this whole issue.
Yeah.
The property in question is unique to Virgin Town. I cannot think of other private parcels which share its geologic and access constraints. The property is primarily a steep-sided mesa with extremely shallow topsoil on top of deep bedrock. This is readily visible from the geologic horizon exposed by the Virgin River on the west and north end of the property. From what is visible, it is difficult to see how installation of typical subdivision and septic system infrastructure will be accomplished at the density proposed. The access road is cut into a sensitive hillside as defined by VULU 1812A3 with slopes far in excess of 30%. A 30% slope is not a 30-degree slope. It is only 16.7 degrees. To widen this road to a safe and stable 2-lane road that can be approved by the fire department for access will be quite a feat and likely involve extensive dirt work to create an adequate road bed and recontour slopes above and below for stability. Aforementioned section raises the question of what level of additional disturbance along the route of the existing access is even acceptable. While the existing road is grandfathered, enlarging the non-conforming road by doubling the traveling width and trying to make it safe are changes that usually trigger the requirement to come into compliance with code. As per VULU 18.12.A.7, sensitive lands may be set aside as common open space and shall be identified as an outlot or other designation that indicates the land is not available for development. This impacts the design of the subdivision on the north and east sides of the property. As has been done often in the past, I suggest the Planning Commission take a field trip to the parcel prior to recommending a preliminary plat or to become, more familiar with its challenges. Reviewing perk test results and a basic geologic study could help answer questions related to infrastructure design. Thank you, Lori Rose.
My name is Richard Kimball. I have recently purchased a lot in Rio de Zion, actually 5 of them, because I was trying to attain privacy and also have the property just out the window here, these fields. And the reason I bought that lot over there was because I thought that I was kind of represented that, not kind of, it was represented that it was BLM. There's one house, probably always be that way. And I know things have transpired and I'm not here with really any dog in the fight other than, when you net out the acreage up there, it's about 18. I think they show 33 as what they purchased, and I understand that. Like I say, I really don't care if there's development up there, but I'd sure like them to stay away from the edge. And the way it's drawn up right now is pretty offensive to lot 66, which if you, I don't know if there's a map around here that has the numbers on it, but it's directly opposing the 6 lots, 20 through 24. Actually, lot 25 is just opposite, and I own the property next to lot 25. I don't know the direction of it, probably to the west. And then the property that goes across the river. And what I'm after is just keeping it the way it is, fixed up the old house and just leaving it that way, and then wanted to build up there. So what I'm really interested in is what I'm learning tonight, because I'm new around here. Don't really have a dog in the fight, but it seems a little offensive to even imagine that there would be VRBOs or nightly rentals or anything like that, which is almost impossible to control. Not only that, we should, you should as a city or a commission think seriously about how close to the edge of this cliff they're going to build. I haven't really heard about a public system or a private system for sewage. And, along the river here, I've got water squirting out all over the place, which I'm assuming is pure water at this point. It just comes out of the side of the hill. But these are just my observations being a new guy. I'm really concerned that they would build up there in the first place, but if it was a nightly rental, once they're sold, it's almost impossible to monitor it. We currently live in Sky Ranch, and there's a bunch of nightly rentals in there now, and it is a nightmare on Friday and Saturday nights. It goes on till 10 o'clock till the sheriff comes, and then it goes on when he leaves. So we're pretty aware of how that is. I want to say I'm not totally opposed to development up there, but I think it needs to be limited to the land that's really buildable. These lines that draw right next to mine, I'm really impacted by, the future, to the point where if it was like this, I'd just sell it and leave. But I really hope not to do that because we enjoy just having grass over here in the field. It was kind of a dream of mine. So I had made the effort to just pass out a couple little flyers here that just shows the acreage that's really buildable up there, these slopes. I don't know what that purpose that would serve. They can't build on them or do anything with them. It just perhaps creates a big enough lot to call it an acre, when in fact they're probably, the biggest ones are maybe half-acre lots at best. So I'm not sure a lot more I can add because, like I said, I'm new here, and if everybody was for this, I would take other options. But I'm really hoping that that thing can't happen the way it is. And this doesn't look like a plat to me. It just looks like some preliminary thing. I don't know how far they've gone with it. So there's probably a lot of discussion that needs to take place before we call it a plat, considering that it nets out at 18 acres that's up there along that ridge line if they were to build close to the ridge line. I think St. George is generally speaking, about 30 feet from cliff edges or something like that. Some of the other towns, the strict development, it's much, much more than that. I think 30 feet's quite close, actually, for something as steep as that is. So those are the only comments I really have. I'm not trying to go cross-grain here. I just wanted to let you know what I thought. And in fact, if you do check the acreage, it's like 18, whatever it is I put on here. I took my glasses off. But the access is obviously pretty rough, and the highway, we're learning as new folks around here, that can be pretty rough. And if you do get behind a motorhome pulling an RV or a RZR out of the parking lot of that hotel, it can be precarious at best. It's pretty risky. And in hearing the comments on where the road actually is and stuff, I didn't really think about Gene's house there, but yeah, that should have to get some blackout blinds for all the headlights, I suppose. But anyway, those are my comments. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Richard.
My name is Mike Reardon. I'm also a resident of Rio de Seon. I would be the house that adjoins the proposed lot number 12. So our house is one of the originals that sits right below that cliff. So I'm not anxious to look out my back window and see someone building there. I'm concerned about that setback as well. Beyond that, we moved here from Grassy Meadows Sky Ranch. And what my neighbor mentioned about the Verbos, is I can validate that. It got to be a nightmare. It was one of the reasons that we moved here, looking for a more peaceable place. And I know that several of my former neighbors are leaving Grassy Meadows for the same reason. It really got out of hand. So I would hope this area does not, if it's built out, I certainly hope it does not go into a usage as Verbo. Also, my background is as a rural volunteer firefighter. I did that for many years in Nevada. And this is kind of a wildland firefighter's nightmare where you have one ingress, one egress. And I have seen those situations, and you're looking at adding a lot of people into an area that could be blocked by wildfire as well as flooding, which was mentioned earlier. But in the case of wildland fire, you could have loss of the ability of those people to get out of there. And yes, there are some backcountry roads, but I doubt that very many people would know their way out of there. So please take that into effect as well, or into account. I think that I agree with one of the previous speakers. This area should have had another bridge, another ingress, egress for emergency vehicles. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'm Joe Martinez, and I live in Lot 1 in Rio de Sion, which is the very first house on Entrada Drive. I have two major concerns with development up there. My first concern is the sandstone that is crumbling. It crumbles down the hill from time to time. I'm concerned about the earth moving and if any possible damage of the boulders tumbling down the hillside with all the neighbors that have their homes on Entrada. So that's my one concern, not just during the development phase, but something that might be disturbed in the future, 5-10 years down the line that we might not see during the construction. The second concern I have with is Camino del Rio, which is a very small street. It now will have a 68 home community, which is Rio de Sion. It would also have the hotel and the very large KOA that's going in there with RVs and RVs towing cars. So that is, and then with the possible new development upstairs above us, that is my major concern, that we will all have to share the very tiny Camino del Rio. And that is my concern with safety and overcrowding. And I think you need to put into consideration the quality of life of the residents that live currently in Virgin. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Anyone else?
I'm going to say one more thing.
Maybe I'll find you back on this list. Hold on.
Well, nobody else mentioned this, so I'm bringing this up. We did talk about the bridge, but I'm concerned. Years ago, there was, long before the rest of Rio de Sion was developed, there was someone who was going to buy one of the 6 houses that was there. And they told me they ended up buying a house in Springdale. And I asked, why did you not buy the house in Rio? And they said they were concerned about the bridge. And this guy was an engineer, and he had gone down and studied the bridge. And he just said, I'm not buying a house in that subdivision back there because I'm worried about the bridge not being sustainable. And that was years ago. That had to have been 7 or 8 years ago when this happened. And with the construction trucks that have been going over the bridge all this time, I myself have been wondering every day when I drive over that bridge to go home, I'm like, is it gonna be okay? And when you go down Entrada and you go to turn to go onto the bridge, all of us cut the corner as we go around that bridge. And when there is a car coming the other way, it is an accident waiting to happen. And so you'll pull off real quick to go around, but it's kind of narrow right there. And I feel like maybe the bridge should be reevaluated, and maybe something needs to be done about that corner when you turn to go to the bridge, because it's just an accident waiting to happen.
Drive where you're supposed to.
Oh, yes.
Distract jokes to enlighten the meaning of that. I know you're not. If anyone else is taking offense.
Hi, Niles Ritter. And like Gene, I live in that house that's right at the T intersection of the currently proposed expanded road, Red Hill Lane. Another geologic aspect of that, not just that intersection, but pretty much that whole, I guess that's about a quarter, eighth mile of the road that leads up to the T intersection, is that it directly adjoins an active flash flood channel. And having lived there now for since 2010, during the monsoon season every year, there are at least 2 or 3 flash floods that occur there. And if you look at the old maps, you'll see that the original progress of the flash flood in geologic history continued on that road, went right through our house, and then kind of made a right turn. And you can see where the original flash flood channel goes out and feeds into the Virgin River. That whole second part of the flash flood channel was pretty much covered over. There was a little pipe put in. And many of you probably received a letter from me remarking on that flash flood channel, and that it continues to try to reconnect with the old flash flood channel, and in the process has threatened several times the integrity of her house by undercutting it on the right-hand side. And there have been a few attempts this past few months ago to address that issue by putting in a larger pipe that goes along the right-hand side. But I can pretty well guarantee that that's not going to satisfy the geologic urges of that flash flood. It is every year it comes back, and it eventually will plug up even this new pipe. It'll again attempt to try to cross the road until a more permanent solution is found. One way or another, what else it would be doing if there's any attempt to expand that narrow road that is currently there in any direction at all, is that the flash flood channel, which follows right alongside it, will probably undercut it. And so the question is also was raised about whether a road, even if it was expanded and constructed there, would be stable for more than a year or two. And we've only been here 10, 12 years. Flash floods are a seasonal thing. There's also 50-year flash floods, which are the likes that we've never seen, but we know that they will come. So that would definitely need to be taken into account.
Thanks, Niles. Anyone else? All right. We'll move on to number 2. Can I get a motion?
I'd make a motion to close the public hearing and open the public meeting.
Second that. Wyatt made a motion to close the public hearing and open the public meeting. I'll second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We'll move on. So we're gonna go to open forum, 2 minutes per speaker. This is to discuss anything that's not on the agenda that you'd like brought up. Okay, just to see why. I'll make it up there. Oh, I didn't see you coming.
Yeah. Paul Louis. I have 2 comments, and the first is thank you. You listened to me at the town council meeting because I saw some proposed ordinances that had strike-throughs and underscore that make it now readable for those that have trouble with color vision. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. I was going to write you a letter, but I don't have to. So more or less, I'm giving you a thank you now. And my second comment is related to the presentation that just happened. And my question or concern, or what you may want to consider for the future, is when you have a big development like this that comes in with a subdivision, start off with a presentation by the developer so you as members can ask the developer the questions. He can give you his concept, and then everybody in the audience kind of has an idea of what was going on. When I was sitting there, I was listening, and I know that's eventually going to come up to the town council. I was still at a loss as to what the developer's doing. So for the future, maybe give the developer 10, 15 minutes and not make him part of the 3 minutes or public forum, have his presentation at the beginning. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Anybody else for open forum? So we go on to D, we go into our public meeting, discussion and possible recommendation to approve. Recommendation to approve or deny ordinance 2022-02 to include zone change from rural residential to commercial. There was some more.
That's the one I read.
Yeah.
Lawyer. On your.
Oh, yes.
Over here.
I knew I'd forget. Okay, so Warrior does have a comment on this one. He says,
Just our town lawyer.
yeah, the town lawyer. I would have advised the mayor and staff that we should probably use a brand new ordinance number and reference in the recitals that it is amending and restating the zone change granted by ordinance 2022-02 to include the additional parcel, and then throughout the body of the restated ordinance and the additional parcel number, I have reviewed the revised ordinance and it looks great. So did he make those changes already, or those changes need to be made?
Gonna make those changes because it was already on the public notice website.
No, I get it. We can make a recommendation with those changes,
Yes,
to include those changes.
yes, if you recommend those changes, we plan to do them when it comes to town council. It's not gonna be a problem.
Well, I feel like we've kind of beaten this one to death.
So, yeah, we'll talk about it a lot. This is meeting number 3. Lori Rose expressed that concern. And I think it is something the lawyer will have to look at. When I reviewed for this ordinance, you read down through chapter 40, which is our commercial zone. If you go to 40.14, it's entitled building location. I don't know why, but it does state in there that the acres required, like the minimum acres is 1 acre. So I don't know if the lawyer's thinking that because it's combined with those others during the rezone, but this doesn't just state during the rezone, this just says a minimum acre. Minimum 1 acre, and that's.
Well, we knew that though, right? Going into it.
I was under the understanding that the language was it had to be 1 acre for rezone, but this is stating 1 acre for the zone, period, not just for rezone.
The property has to be an acre.
That's what,
Yeah.
that's mine.
Yeah, and I thought we had discussed that, like as part of the discussion, because it was a substandard lot. And that's why we were making a recommendation to change it with this zone change and not wait and do it by itself, because otherwise they wouldn't be able to do it.
As Laura explained it previously, it has to be, the previous one had to be amended and add this one to it, so we're doing it as a total package, which as a town, you're allowed to rezone in that fashion, even if the lot is substandard. Now, the lot itself, we are making a change later, so they can actually do something with their lot. But it can be rezoned, and he's done a good job writing the ordinance. To meet that, of course, it has to be labeled as an amendment to it, but I think his recommendation is sufficient, and we should move on.
I just disagree, but any other comments? I just disagree. My reading of it's different.
So we make a motion?
Make a motion, we're to proceed, that's just my opinion. What?
She wanted to know why you disagree with it.
No, I just don't agree with that assessment. My understanding of it was different before when we were talking about it, but after my reading of the ordinance, I just don't see it like that, so. But it's just my reading of it, so.
I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead.
I'd like to move to approve the amending ordinance 2022-02 to include zone change from rural residential to commercial at 34 West SR9 V-90-B-1. I've been to the meetings for the town council on this, and this is a situation where this area is basically surrounded by commercial or a park on all sides. This small, unusual lot gets caught in between all that and really affects what can happen there in the future for that lot. And so the town made the exception to wait from doing that zoning of the larger property so that the owners who have this small piece of property can consider whether or not they want to stay residential or be included in commercial, so that down the road somewhere, they will never have the opportunity to be zoned commercial. And so this gives them that opportunity to do on their lot options that they're surrounded by. And doubtful that anybody's going to buy a residential lot there from them in the future. So the town said, let them consider it. We've got a timetable. The timetable is about up. I make that motion that I made for those reasons. I believe it affects the quality of life for those concerned and the town as well.
Can I suggest you amend that to say recommendation for approval?
Recommendation for approval.
Yes.
Please amend that.
Yeah,
Including the town lawyer's comments on the change.
I've got a motion to recommend approval with changes as indicated by the town lawyer. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Kent made the motion, Sean seconded the motion. We'll vote, Sean?
Yes.
Kent?
Yes.
Cameron, no?
Yes.
Wyatt? Bronwyn?
Yes.
Motion passes. All right. We will, what was that called when we changed the order from point of order? So So for a point of order, we're going to move C before B in our next discussion. So we're gonna move up to the discussion and recommendation to approve or deny proposed subdivision preliminary plat, Quail Mesa subdivision from Jeff Lee.
Do you want to read the next?
Yes, we will get to that, yes. All right, so. Maybe I'll let Ken read. That's right. Let's see, and it goes down this page.
And this is from the attorney for the developer?
No, this is the town.
This is the town's attorney. Preliminary plat for the proposed Quail Mesa subdivision. I would suggest that a recommendation for approval or denial of the proposed preliminary plat for the Quail Mesa subdivision be tabled until further information can be obtained and provided to the town and necessary recommended conditions of approval be developed. It appears to me that because of the nature and location of the proposed subdivision, that the following studies need to be performed and reported on by individuals or firms comfortable with this area and which are licensed and bonded to do so. A topographical survey and slope stability study indicating the slopes upon which all building lots and access roads are to be located. Our subdivision ordinance 18.12 parentheses 3 prohibits development of all areas containing a slope of 30 degrees or greater. I am not sure what the slope of that access road area. I'm not sure what the slope of that access road area is, but my recollection is that it is quite steep. Another aspect of slope stability study would be that building pad areas may need to be designated and set back so as to ensure homes are constructed in the most stable settings and in ways that are not visually obtrusive. B, a traffic and bridge capacity study that analyzes all possible trips per day and nature of traffic to be using the roadways and bridge on Entrada Drive. C, documentation that the developer has obtained an adequate second access to and from the subdivision as the proposed Red Hill Lane appears to be much longer than 750 feet. Under the International Fire Code Appendix D, fire apparatus access roads, of which the town has adopted and the Hurricane Valley Fire District enforces, a dead-end road with residences located upon it, which is at least 26 feet wide, cannot be longer than 750 feet in length. Anything over 750 feet would require the developer to make special accommodations with the Hurricane Valley Fire Department to avoid the need to have a secondary access. As the town is not the fire protection purveyor within its municipal boundaries, we should defer to the Hurricane Valley Fire Department, of which the town is a member. Comment?
Yeah, comments, that's what we're at.
I've got a whole list of concerns, and I appreciate the people that are here from the neighborhood and from the town. This is a proposal that has, as we all, I think, can hear and see today, and I thought I had a list of things, and it's barely been touched compared by you out there today. So I have real concerns about the items that the town citizens have mentioned. I have concerns about setback. I have concerns. I mean, if I were a developer and I don't really didn't really know what I know. I might consider the 7 lots on the south side of the road, as farthest away from the cliff and the river as possible. But that being said, my big concerns are that, if I can find them. Quality of life for the people that live here. I don't know how many lots are in Rio de Sion that are not built upon at this point. Can you tell me?
That are not built upon or in construction mode?
Yeah, we have about 50.
There's 50 lots still vacant.
Right.
Okay.
The plans are coming in fast and furious.
To me, that's number one for this, considering the challenges that are there, is that, I think that we have to look at what the previous developer and the people who live there have as a quality of life and what this will mean to them. Besides all the many things that you mentioned, which were really good and are on my list, I have concerns about the bridge, and I have concerns about the wash. You know that wash better than I know that wash. But if you've lived in the desert, washes can be real challenges and headaches. So I would propose a tabling of this to if you want to move forward on this, to consider the ideas of the town legal counsel. And those are my comments.
Thanks, Ken.
Do we want to hear from the developer and kind of hear the general plan for the?
Is he here today?
Yeah. Do you want to?
Sean, go ahead, Sean. Are we good?
Go ahead, Jeff.
My name's Jeff Lee. I've met some of you before. I appreciate everyone's comments tonight. We could go back over the history of this property, but I think some of you guys are aware of that over the last year and a half. We've looked at this property for a year and a half. We went under contract with Linda Collette. Linda Collette understood at the time that it was a potential there to do a commercial development. The previous administration had kind of talked with my brother Ryan and I about that, said that they were open to that. The property was actually made eligible to be rezoned to a highway resort. There was a referendum filed. When that was filed, my brother and I put together a public meeting at our own, we paid to rent this space. We came in and we told people what we were doing. We just said, we're the type of people that will tell you what we're doing. We came here. We outlined it at the time. We were looking at doing a high-end landscape hotel. And as we went further into this, we realized the referendum, people were there. We withdrew that, and we did not try to pursue that further. And we were told that you're zoned rural residential. You can only do what the ordinances outline that you can do. In fact, it was the people at that meeting were the ones that said, you can do a subdivision up there. These are the things you can do. We kept our commitment to Linda Collette's family after she passed away, and we still bought this. I have now followed the ordinances, what is stated that you can develop in a rural residential area. I have worked with an engineer, and that's why you see the lot arrangements like that. We just said, that the entire lot is 35 acres. That footprint up top is 18 acres. I've had some conflicting information, and there's no way for me to know. But when I go to the rural residential section 34, it tells you that you have to have a minimum lot of 1 acre, 34,000 square feet and change, and at least 100 foot width. These lots meet those requirements. I've had people tell me you don't have to do that. You can make those lots smaller and do greater density. But the engineer, when I'm looking through, there's nowhere I can see that variance granted. And so what is proposed here is exactly what the ordinances state that you can what people told me to do May 20th when we sat here in a meeting. I also understand everyone's concerns that lives in that neighborhood. I fully get that. I came to the meeting tonight not expecting to get approval for this. And I was given a concept. I was given two different, there's the code here that tells you what you need to do to go through the subdivision of land. And I was also given a packet by the town clerk. They're not quite, they don't quite mirror each other. And that was a concept plan there. And I felt it was important to put this out. I would like to hear everyone's feedback. I'd like to hear everyone's concerns before you spend a lot of time and money getting into that to understand what the concerns are so that, those can be taken into consideration. I do agree with what the town attorney said. Topographical study has been done, slope stability. And I also think that the traffic and bridge study was told I was going to need to do that. It was not disclosed to us when we bought this property that there was an easement granted at the beginning of that. That was never in there, and our attorneys are taking that taking that into effect, whether it's a easement of consideration or easement of necessity or easement of prevention. I'm not an attorney, but and if not, we'll have to figure out a solution for that. But the part of this tonight for me was to hear what the concerns were. So again, I could take that in consideration. I also agreed that there are some more studies there need to be done. I'm fully on board with doing those.
So which studies have you said you have done topographical?
I've done the topographical surveys.
Because I haven't.
Okay, I can get those. They were doing the slope stability, and they've done geotechnical stuff on the top, and now they're doing geotechnical work on the southwest or southeast side, and those aren't finished yet. And so, they're in process. And again, when I looked at the packets, I felt like it was more important to come at this stage, kind of go over this, and I expect to have it continued. So that, again, I could hear, and work through that. So.
Have you met with Bergen Valley Fire?
No, because I'm not to that stage yet. Yeah. And I am aware of the requirements with the road and the slope, and engineers are working through that. So.
Anybody else have any questions?
I just think it's really great to be here and to listen to everybody. I think wouldn't it be great if we know what we want to need out of this? And so we have what we needed.
Yeah, we came a year ago, or I guess it was in May, so 11 months ago, my brother and I, we put on a meeting, which wasn't required, and we did it just to say, this is what we want to do. We'd rather come and tell you. And that's, again, what we're doing here. I just said, I'd rather talk about that. But like last year, I remember I met Lauren and Joe, and they, talked to us about some of that. And I understand that. And like I said, this right now is the conceptual plat that the engineers came up with. I would like to get some clarification on density and stuff, because when you read the rural residential code, it says a minimum acre on each lot. I'm not going to say this isn't my ideal thing. I'm just saying I'm not ever going to do something that I don't see in writing in an ordinance. Because I've kind of watched this town over the last year. I'm going to follow what it says, or I'm not going to assume anything because someone tells me something.
So, any other questions? Sean?
Just a couple of comments, I think, one suggestion, actually.
Yep.
I'm sad to say that we didn't get the previous development. I really enjoyed the concept and everything you have. This seems like we're settling for another subdivision. Rio Design was based on kind of the same thing that you're doing here. They're actually a cluster subdivision. Their lots are smaller than an acre. That is in our ordinances. Its precedence is already set. Take a look at that.
Okay.
Have the lawyers look at that. So that's one comment. I really think this could have been a little different with the concept you had previously as a commercial development. But here we are. So I do have some other comments.
Yeah.
After your
I've got a question for you. So are you going to build spec homes and sell spec homes or custom homes? What's your plan? Do you have any idea?
Don't have a plan, no. Like, people are asking now, you're gonna do this and that. Right now, I'm getting a subdivision approved.
For sure.
So that's where I'm at.
So this is really concept phase.
Concept phase, yes. And again, I had a packet from the town clerk that had a concept phase, and when you go to the ordinances, there's a preliminary plat. I felt like it was more important to be here at a concept phase because the input there actually has an impact on what you're doing versus at a preliminary plat when it's approved or not approved, so.
CCNRs? No drafts or anything?
No drafts. I could have got, honestly, I could have got a boilerplate one drawn real easy, but I just figured I'm not going to waste the time until I know kind of where people were at, so.
I appreciate that. Any other questions?
Some of the setbacks, I don't know how close these are to actuality, but they just, like lot number 1, I think, or something like that. Seems like it's right on the edge.
All of the setbacks were done by the engineer that followed. If it wasn't found in our code, then she went to the county. So I'm not an engineer, but I pay one. And the pads, those little boxes you see up there, that's not necessarily where a house would be, but I said, show me a 3,600 square foot footprint so that we have an idea. But more or less, she said there's a building pad on each of these that meets all of the minimum setbacks. I go with the engineer, so.
But the engineer's done a study on the degree of slope from the edge of the mesa or from the front to the back of the lots.
Anywhere that there's a lot built does not exceed, anywhere that there's where you build a home does not exceed that slope. The front of those lots is a tremendous slope. It's a cliff at the top and it drops down, but that also meets the requirements of the rural residential zone, which is a minimum of 43,000 square feet.
Have you done any perk tests yet on?
Yeah, we've started perk tests on top and then we're doing more on the side, so. And again, I have engineers working on, what you need to do to get that to where it's at, so.
So you're kind of looking for what the attorney said, which is some conditions for approval, just kind of organized.
No, honestly, I wanted to come and listen to comments and feedback and stuff. Most of these, the attorney kind of outlined the list of what I thought there was going to be. Plus, I've had people reach out and say, this and this and this. And so part of it was just saying, like, again, rather have it here, rather talk about it. And my understanding too is you can come for this and you can get either approved or not approved. And, whether that's right or wrong, I felt like it was more important to come today to have it. And then, Thank you.
One last question that I had.
Sure.
Was, are these going to be individually septic type classic systems, or are you planning on doing a
Water treatment plant. Yeah, and that's what the studies are being done for is wastewater treatment. There's, you wouldn't have the room, you don't have the topsoil on top to do septic, so. You just went above my head when you talked what that means, so.
How much you like that?
Love it.
I don't know what that even means, so I'm not going to try to respond to that, but it would be wastewater treatment. No. I think last year when my brother and I came and did a meeting and tried to get in front of people and tell them what our plan was, we tried to demonstrate that we are willing to be open and talk. I'm always happy to talk to anyone. And like I said, it's hard for me because I understand when you build something new, the people that are previous are not going to be happy. Just like the people in phase 1 probably aren't happy about phase 2 of Rio Design or phase 3 or whatever it is, or any other desert gardens or wherever it is. I understand and I sympathize with that. And sometimes, I don't know, the manifest destiny of the West seems like we just keep building.
Well, the ideal would be if you could speak to another concern and maybe get it what you want to do. That would be ideal.
Yeah. And I heard quite a few of those today and it's helpful. So.
you, sir. Appreciate it.
Yep.
So I'm gonna make a motion.
I got a comment. Okay. This is a big issue, okay? When Rio Design came in, that was a big issue. I love to go over there and play in the fields and, across the river and enjoy that, but then, they developed a subdivision over there, changed all of it. This is a huge thing. I'm glad there's lots of public here. What we need to, as a body here, understand, it's not all about what we think. So if it was my decision, I would not have had Rio Design, or this. I don't prefer the development, but I want to read for you who are newer, planning and zoning, and also some for the public, a little bit from our training handbook, from the handbook for planning commissions and land use authorities from the Utah League of Cities and Towns. It says, talking of legislative and administrative duties, it says when the planning commission is acting as a land use authority, it has little discretion. They are acting in an administrative capacity. The landowner's application either complies with the ordinances or it does not. An individual planning commissioner's opinion of the merits of a proposed land use application is not relevant to the process. Any individual commissioner's opinion and any of the public's comments and concerns are relevant only to the extent that they speak to issues of compliance with the existing law. That's what we get to do. We get to look at the law. He's looked at the law. He's had the engineers looking at that law and complying with that. The comments we have, I'm glad he's taking those back. And this is going to adjust. This is the stage that it's at. So we get to look at, is it legal to do a subdivision here? Does he have the right amount of lots, the right amount of room on each lot? Those kind of things are what we get to discuss. The other issues of road access and topography and all those kind of things also, as the Lord brought up, should be addressed and then being addressed through the studies. As far as us being able to say yes or no, if the law says yes, then we get to say yes. Hopefully we get enough conditions that some of the mitigating concerns will be addressed. I think that's most important in this situation, is that if we can have those concerns mitigated, great, but it looks like if they're moving forward with this, we gotta do the best we can to make sure it meets everybody's needs, including the landowner.
Right. So Michelle, because there are questions of legality here, as per the attorney, and because we're at a stage right now where there's a lot to be done, it's time for the public to be able to put input in it. We are in a place where we don't have a clear path, a clear, our ordinances aren't even clear as to what our job is yet. So our job right now is to dig in, clean up the messes and the ordinances that make this unclear, and give the public the chance for, to give feedback to the developer. I mean, we're in a really good spot to make this work out.
Yes.
If we, so I would.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So with that, I would like to make a motion that we table this Quail Mesa subdivision, because I guess it wasn't even the preliminary plat. We've got a recommendation from the attorney as to proceed. So I'll make a motion that we table this.
Can you do the continuance and public hearing with it?
Yes, please.
We'll have to reopen the public, hearing and continue an alternate.
Thank you. They already closed.
We already closed that. I have a motion to table the preliminary plat. Proposed subdivision preliminary plat, Quail Mesa subdivision from Jeff Lee. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? I have a couple things, no one else does. So when I was looking through the ordinance for the preliminary plat, now those may have been turned into the town, so I don't know, they just weren't available. I just didn't see that they had been turned into the town. Some of the things that was missing from our ordinance that we would need for the preliminary plat would be the topographical survey in 1 foot. I believe it requires 1 foot increments. The ordinance. Yeah, 1 foot, 1 foot, 1 foot intervals, vertical intervals of 1 foot. We would also need the geological study, the sewer study would need to be done. And as the lawyer indicated, we would request a traffic study, which doesn't always have to be done. The other thing we're missing is draft of the CCNR and a draft of a common space or open space management plan. And with that topographical study, there'd be an erosion control plan that the ordinance asks for, and then the location and size of the wastewater system. So those are the things that I saw were missing for this subdivision.
Cameron, I asked you said at the beginning, topographical survey, your 1 foot vertical, and then you said sewer study. Was there something along with sewer study? You said the second point there?
Yeah, the geotechnical study, the soil study.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, I was making notes, thanks.
Yeah. It does, the preliminary plat does not require the sign off of from the Hurricane Valley Fire District. It's not mentioned in here, but given the special nature, you might want to include that too. But it's not required for the preliminary plat. I think that was I think those are the things that were lacking. And, yeah. I don't think there's any, and if there was any significant natural resources or features on the property, but I don't think there is on that property. No spring up on top?
No.
Where?
It's only the town has a right of way through Allen's property, but that doesn't have anything to do with theirs.
So we have a motion on the table. Any more discussion on it?
So since how this was, it wasn't really a preliminary plat, it was more of a, concept. Do we need to table it? Or do we just need to dismiss it until they bring a preliminary plat?
We can do either. What would you guys prefer as the developer? Would you like to repost this as a preliminary plat, or would you like us just to keep the public?
I'd like to table and just continue it, because I'll just get the stuff that we need, and, we could have whatever we need to do next month, so.
Okay.
Kevin, those studies need to be completed before preliminary or in the process of?
So the traffic study does not. The traffic study does not say here it has to be before approval of the preliminary plat, but the topographical survey says it does. And I believe the geotechnical and the soil study does need to be done before.
The wastewater treatment or sewer.
And yeah, the wastewater treatment, it just says location and size, so that can be approximated, but in general, anything else?
Cameron, you table it, we'll have to redo another public hearing, which means it's gonna cost us a lot of money to resend out letters.
So
We send it certified.
we're going to reopen the public hearing. So we're going to continue the public hearing. Those letters won't need to be sent out. You'll still be on the public hearing again.
Right.
We'll vote.
Question.
Yeah. Wyatt, yes. Cameron, yes.
Yes.
Sean? Yes. All yeses. For general information, I know you got conflicting information on the size of the lots, so we do require 1 acre lots. However, we do, if you look in our subdivision, our division of land ordinance, 18, there you'll see where it allows for clustering of homes so that the lot can be smaller and you can have greater open space. If that's,
Section 18, I'll look it up.
it's in chapter 18. I don't know what section that is. That's also where you're gonna find the preliminary plat and the requirements for it.
When the engineer went through that, it wasn't 100% clear that the clustering would apply to rural residential, and I'm being told it does.
It does. Okay. Yeah, it does apply. I'm not sure what section that's in. I apologize. There's no-
No, that's fine, I just want clarification before I do thinking.
Yeah.
Cameron,
Kent.
when they do the traffic study, I don't know that that would include the concerns about the access road coming on and off the mesa as far as its viability.
So that would be part of that geotechnical study.
Okay.
And the topographical study, that would be the road coming on. And then their traffic study will go to our engineer and he can take that number and compare it to Rio de Zion and then look at the bridge and then they can decide, okay, well, we may need to do, like they're talking about that term, well, maybe they need to do some improvements right there. So that's where the traffic study will come in. Just for the town engineer. Anything else? All right, we go to our next item then. So we're gonna go to B. Oh, yeah. I need a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to reopen open the public hearing, or reopen the public hearing for the proposed subdivision, Quail Mesa subdivision from Jeff Lee.
I have a motion to reopen the public hearing for proposed subdivision, Quail Mesa subdivision from Jeff Lee and close the public meeting. Brian, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. I'll make a motion that we continue the public hearing for proposed subdivision, preliminary plat 12, Mesa subdivision for Jeff Lee. Do I have a second? Ronald seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The public hearing has been continued, and it will be continued in May planning and zoning meeting. All right, so that has been continued. I'll entertain a motion to close the public meeting or close the public hearing and open the public meeting.
So moved.
Have a motion, got a second?
Second.
Kent made the motion, and Bronwyn second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. So I hopefully we covered all those concerns, and I think we did, with the exception of the driveway, and that's something we indicated that they're gonna work out. So I think that's the list of our concerns for that.
Just like everybody wants to be like, we're just not, it's not that like, public meeting, we're that here.
And then, so now we'll move on to letter B, discussion of appearance of access ways from West End County Tropical Road. So Darlene mentioned in the public hearing about the emergency access at the other road. So that road we had talked about on the west side of SR9,
Oh, yeah.
that was for second access, and maybe the second access out of the subdivision isn't big enough, but a road is still needed there somewhere to access that great big lot behind the subdivision, if you recall, there's that lot there. So there's both things there.
Is the property next to the Desert Gardens there at that access lot, is that BLM?
Correct. That's all.
Is the concern then to the property down?
The concern is when you're in Desert Gardens, there's an emergency access road
Right.
right off of 50 South.
Right.
Between those two lots, and that's a small easement,
Right.
not big enough for.
Okay, so we're just saying that that road from Desert Gardens continues to be an emergency road only. And we're just letting UDOT know that there's an emergency access for that subdivision. And who owns the property down below? Is that the conservation easement? Yes.
She's back in the back camera.
Darlene?
That's the Nature Conservancy.
Oh, Nature's Conservancy conservation easement, okay. So,
For now.
forever,
Maybe, we might sell it eventually.
to the Sierra Club. So, so my question would be, would UDOT or the county need a road designation there, an access road, other than what's already there?
So,
Just maybe they'll want some kind of safety access for people exiting the gardens, because that's all this is for.
yes. But this is also will be our master transportation plan, which we hope would look, it's gonna look far into the future, right? And so that we don't have things happen, so that when a project goes in or a subdivision goes in, that if we have this plan in place, then we will have the infrastructure we need in the beginning, right? So one of the things that April mentioned was that the road into Desert Gardens is substandard by Washington County standards by 5 feet. So if we would have had this master plan done, when that subdivision went in, knowing that those two commercial lots are there, we would have said, no, you can't do this smaller, you're gonna have to put a bigger easement through here. And so, in my opinion, having that indicated on our map as an access road is important for that master plan.
So the reality to me, as far as that BLM land there, is that I see that as the only possible land that would ever be developed or deeded to somebody else or auctioned off. Because the legal document of Nature's Conservancy's conservation easement is that it can never be developed. That's into perpetuity forever.
But what if what if that project 20 years down the road decided that they want to put a hiking trail on the north side of the river and they need access for cars to come and park there so they can access that trail?
Are we making a judgment that it should be along the edge of the
Yes.
gardens rather than 100 feet to the west?
Yes. That would be my desire because of that emergency access.
Okay, so are there limitations as to how close that road could be to the border of Desert Gardens? You know where I'm coming from here. And that is, the people in the gardens want to protect their quality of life, just like the people in Rio de Sion do. And I want to make sure that that's really the place that UDOT would say, yeah, that's the best spot for an access here, along with you and I saying it's the best spot. Maybe that's all UDOT needs is for us to say, we need one here somewhere. And maybe UDOT will pull it back from that property line for the requirement that they're going to need.
And maybe they will. They could, right? They could. Again, with that emergency access, who knows? Give or take 100 feet makes no difference.
So will UDOT, I'm the rookie here, and I want you to know how much I appreciate how you handle these meetings and the research that I can see that you do for each of these items on the agenda, and for guiding us through this. I really appreciate you. So as we talk to UDOT, do we ask them questions like this? Okay, you guys, we have a development here with homes that are developed, et cetera, trees have grown, shrubs have grown, walls have been built, walls haven't been built. And do you have some kind of a requirement that if you're going to put a road down somewhere in the future somewhere, or if BLM says they need a road, or if BLM sells that land and somebody wants a road, do you then, as UDOT, have an ordinance or whatever that keeps that road away from the wall of that property owner or the edge of that property?
So this road would.
So I guess what I'm saying is, do we give UDOT the leeway to see where they're going to put that access point rather than we're trying to figure it out for them?
So I think we can do both, right? We can say, yeah, we want it right here. Or we can say, listen, we need an access road in this general facility. You help us, which location is best? Right? I think
But-
either way.
At this point, you're just talking about for the emergency access. At
Yes.
this point, that's all you really care about.
Well,
And do they need to put something there that they don't already have?
no, they don't need anything there that they don't already have. For this project, which hopefully we do get assistance from UDOT on this. I spoke with the mayor earlier, and there's some contradictory information that we're getting from different people, so. But for our master plan, the idea is we indicate the areas that we need these accesses. They help us determine the best locations for it, right? And then we set that, and then when developments come in, we already know where those accesses are. And we don't end up with substandard accesses.
So, one question I have about, especially like this spot, do we, like, if we don't know that they have a right of way from the BLM, is it on our, I mean, like when they built Rio, they had to put in there, they had to pay for the improvement on SR9. So I guess, does this really need to be in our general plan that this has to be here, where if someone decides to develop it, we can require that they do an improvement?
I would hope that they have an easement from the BLM. I don't know.
Right.
Like, this is an urban subdivision. I don't know what.
Well, it's just a piece of property, isn't it? Is it a subdivision?
You're talking about Rio Design.
No. V21, the big piece right here. Isn't that what we're talking about?
No, we're just talking about access. That's the.
The emergency access?
Yeah.
Why?
This is nature conservancy.
Yeah.
Oh, that's Nature Conservancy. So
Yeah.
there's really no reason to even, we were talking, oh, it was across the road that we were. But that's Nature Conservancy.
But Nature Conservancy may want access in 20 years.
They might.
You don't know what they're gonna do in 50 years. No one does.
But let me tell us.
No, go ahead.
So I'm sorry, but I volunteered for the Nature Conservancy and I worked with them on the committee. And they have already planned a small parking area at the west end of this.
Is on the west end of this
And I can
property?
put you in touch with the person.
No, I agree. I don't doubt you. I don't doubt you at all. I agree with you 100%. I am saying there's no way to guarantee that in 20 years, they're not gonna say, or 30 years, they're not gonna say, hey, you know what? We would like to do a parking area here with a little visitor center or something to enjoy that land, and we need access to the
Right,
highway.
she's agreeing with you, she's gonna tell me.
So perhaps you should be put in touch with the Nature.
Yeah, I like the number.
But even those people don't know 40 years from now.
And then we're just trying to.
Go ahead.
That's exactly what they've just done. They wanted access off the Sheepsbridge Road into the parking lot, they're looking to create there. So it can very easily happen in the future if they want to change the parking lot.
They're closing that parking lot.
The ones that they just sat with me, they walked with me about a month ago, and they said they're gonna be putting the parking lot off to the west of Sheepsbridge Road. And the parking lot really connects. What I'm saying is that they may in the future want to put a parking lot somewhere. That's totally.
But that's part of this whole long-range plan, that one as well, on the west, east side.
So even
But what I'm saying is
still though,
It can change.
if they want to put something in there, can't they
Yes.
be required to?
What I'm saying for our master plan,
Mhm.
for our master transportation plan, is I would prefer that the town decide, and with UDOT's help, of the best location, where we want that road to go if they decide they ever want to put it in. It's not like we're saying, okay, we want access here and tomorrow we're gonna put it in.
Right.
We're just saying, look, if these guys ever want access to this property on this side of the river to vehicle traffic, this is where it needs to go.
So what we're doing here is just making a general idea of what we want in the future. They're not gonna do a road project.
This is not a road project. This is not saying, all right, we want you to put the turning lanes in.
Well, that's what I thought we were doing.
No. This is just for future development, right? Or the other thing is, look, if we indicate on this map, and this map can always be adjusted too, but we say right now, the best thing it looks like to us is they put an access road right here. That way, if BLM ever does auction off that piece and they want to develop, we say, look, here's where our access road is. We want this road to go all the way to the Conservancy place. We want an easement all the way to there because this is part of our master plan. It has nothing to do with building now. No, if that
I thought-
was the impression, I'm sorry.
That was because they were doing a road study or a traffic study and all sorts of things. I thought they were getting ready to come and do a road project in the next 3 or 4 years.
No.
Okay.
No, these would be roads that go in as needed, as desired.
Okay.
And all I want to do is make sure that the town says, this is where we want them. That way when the development comes or the desire comes, we already have a plan. And we're not just putting them wherever correct.
So let's get that information.
If you want to get that information, that would be great. I can't work with them a lot, so I'll just look in. I talk to most people.
Are we talking about Nature Conservancy,
We're just
UDOT,
making sure we
or
have
Nature
BLM?
Conservancy.
Just
Okay,
making sure we have.
Nature
the
Conservancy.
right ones.
okay. I'll do that. I think that it makes sense to plan ahead as to where we might want, but we may want a road there.
You just don't know it's right next to the.
Well, no, I don't think a developer would put it next to the wall, and certainly Sierra, Desert Gardens doesn't want it next to the borderline. And it wouldn't come down to the law below of Nature Conservancy. They're gonna wind it around and have a development, the road won't be touching these borders. I just think I hear you say, we need to let UDOT know that we want access into that BLM property potentially someday. They then will talk to us about, okay, here's how we handle that kind of situation, because it's not even in the town, boundary at this point, but someday it will be.
Well, it is in the town.
Is it been,
Town boundaries clear here.
okay, because when I look at yellow, I think it's BLM.
Yeah, it is,
But it is,
inside
but it
the
is,
town
in
boundaries.
the town boundaries, BLM's inside the city limits.
Correct.
And so then, that changes, my point is that they're now a citizen, BLM is, and where do they want their road to go? Maybe the BLM ought to be discussed in this, I don't think so, they don't care.
Where's the road to the diversion?
They don't want any roads in there.
That's the end of the top, that's the.
They got too many roads, they got too many roads to do, and let's just talk to UDOT and say, where would you suggest that we put a road? Here, we got the wash there, we've got the access, emergency access, we've got UDOT. We want there to be access someday down into this property when it gets purchased from the BLM.
Yes.
That's what we want to do.
Yes.
So moved.
This is just a discussion on it. Sorry if I got upset for a second.
You did? That was upset?
That was upset. That was not mad, that was just upset. That's when I started yelling some kids when I did about that point. Tell them to go to bed.
That was like medium rare.
Anyway, so that, April brought up a lot of those design standards, and I don't know about any of that stuff. I just have to leave that up to the engineers to figure all that out. The avoiding traffic to existing streets is, obviously that's preferred. But in this instance on Desert Gardens, it's just not avoidable.
That's all the discussion.
Yeah, but I wanted to address those comments. And then to address the cost that April brought up, and then no projects from UDOT. Correct, this is not being paid for by UDOT, except that we hope to get a grant from them to finish and really do a good job on this master plan. But most all these improvements that are gonna be made to the highway are gonna be done either by the town, by outside boards, by outside entities, or as development goes in. And with the 12-foot bike lane, I would prefer that we have our plan in place, and then the 12-foot bike lane works its way into our plan, not we work the 12-foot bike lane into, or we work our road into the 12-foot bike lane plan.
So is the 12-foot bike lane going on the state right away?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if we, look, that thing's, they're going hundreds of miles. That's a long time to get to us, I imagine, but I would prefer we have our master plan done so that they work our framework, not the other way around.
I took the invitation from Darlene and April to pull in there today at 5 o'clock in the afternoon in April and turn around and come back out to the highway and see what it's like if I want to try and turn west. And then imagine the bike path there, trying to figure out, are there anybody's on bikes or walking? And is there, I know there's traffic coming from there, I can see it, and I see there's traffic here, but I actually have a turn lane if I want to go right, but I don't have a turn lane if I want to, there's no center turn on to going west on SR9. You have to pull right into that west lane. So in other words, I can't get in and merge. There's no way to merge.
When you turn to go to Bergen,
Yeah,
yeah, there's a little lane, there's an acceleration lane there. Because I passed a car on it today. I was on here, she pulled out, and I went past it. And then
so
she-
there's a,
Sorry, wrong way. I didn't pass it legally, all right?
there's a deceleration lane
Yeah.
that turns into Desert Gardens. But the main highway is 2 lanes right there. That deceleration lane continues as a deceleration lane to turn onto Sheep Ridge Road. So there isn't any way to get across there, but Wyatt's finding it.
On Google Maps, it shows an acceleration lane coming out of 1420 West.
There is, that's, yeah, mine, please. We might need to. Yeah,
I just made a drone.
all right.
Made a drone.
We got one. It's called Google Earth.
So that's my fear. We have to get ahead of it, definitely, like you
No,
said.
and the project that's going in there is supposed to, I believe the recommendation was that they put in a right-hand turn lane coming out of Desert Gardens, so it would be 3 lanes wide coming out.
Well, there has, maybe I made the violation when I went home. Because I didn't get back, wasn't able to get back in going east until I got clear to Sheep Ridge Road. It was,
Yes, that's correct.
but we also have to realize for the people that live in the gardens, that you've got Libre or whatever it's called, Labrie, that's going to be developed there, very likely, that has people pulling in and off of that street and onto Sheep Ridge Road and pulling into that deceleration lane to get gasoline and to get lodging and get food. That's just, to me, a nightmare, as people are coming down from 65 miles an hour.
Yeah, hopefully once that's all in, traffic will slow down.
Utah knows how to handle that.
So, when I spoke with you guys, I also asked about lowering the speed limit and the process for that. And they said they are happy to come and do a study, a traffic study. The caveat is, if they do the study, whatever the study says, that's the speed limit they're gonna put it at. So I said, well, how do you do the study? And they said, so how do we do a study? We put those strips out there, and we count the cars, and we measure the speed of every car going over that. And then we put it on a curve, and we take the 85th percentile speed, and we can go 5 miles above it or 5 miles below it.
That's if they do a study, or we tell them what we want,
Yeah.
and they don't do a study.
Don't think.
Try doing that with the state.
Work that way? I can ask them if we can work it that way.
But are they saying we don't want to do a study?
They're saying they're happy to do a study, but if it comes back that it's supposed to be 70, they're gonna raise it to 70.
Remember that they're motivated to get people designing too. Like, that's-
Fine. Let them raise it to 70 if that's how it comes back. I'm willing to take that gamble.
So they did.
I followed too many lines of cars and traffic to know it's not gonna be.
It's 70 now.
They did a study up at the auto camp, that's up by my house, Dalton Mall. That study came back, the average rate of speed through there, and it was either 68 or 73, I can't remember. It was one of those two. And so that would indicate a higher speed limit than it's, either one of those indicates a higher, could be a higher speed limit than what's posted at now. So I really think that if you did a study right now, that would come back fast. Now, I'm happy to consider, keep talking to them and try and get that pushed out. The 45 pushed out. And that
Pushed out?
Further west.
Further west.
Oh, I see.
The 45 mile an hour speed limit pushed.
Cameron, can I add some history to that? When Jay was mayor, we did a study that it raised the speed limit to 65. Nothing you could do about it. When Bruce was the mayor, we did a study. It raised the speed limit to 55. Nothing you could do about it. But Bruce got down on his hands and knees and said, please don't raise the speed limit. So they left it at 40. Whatever the study comes back is what they're gonna do. I personally would like the 65, but
90 would be good.
90 would be better.
So I said this when we first started, when I first got into the administrator. The way you get your traffic down is you bring in businesses that cause people to slow down and pull off. Bring your traffic closer to the street, bring your businesses closer to the street, where people slow down because it's tight. Like you go through Rockford, where people are going slow, not just because it's a speed limit, but things are close to the road. Springdale's the same way. You would feel uncomfortable going 65 through Springdale. But you have businesses that cause people to turn off, it slows everybody down. Then you do your traffic study. You do it beforehand, it's exactly like she said.
No, you don't, you do it now.
Yeah, you do it now, it's gonna stay high. I'm saying if you want it lower, you get it. But until there's something for people to slow down for, if you do a study, it's gonna come back faster. I've kind of watched for the past several weeks after I talked to DOT, going through town, and the average speed is closer to 55 than it is to 45. Likely it would come back, like you said, 55, and they'll just put it there. They won't. If you do the study, you accept what they do.
Yes, I was at the initial meeting with UDOT's engineer, and he announced to the mayor that they were going to do this access point study. And I made the comment to them that I would really like to see a traffic circle as you come into town, either right as you turn into Desert Gardens, roundabout, a traffic circle there as a calming device. And their response was, well, that will slow traffic down. I said, exactly. It would slow traffic down and allow a turn into the subdivision and a way out, and slow traffic with coming in. They questioned, this guy wasn't part of the traffic circle part, he was just doing access points, so you couldn't address that. But I raised the issue with them. Get to what you're discussing with the speed, that's a concern. So what you need to also do is think about ways that you can reduce the speed versus the traffic study. Because what happens if they do a traffic study, they're not going to go just. So you need to find out the traffic calming measures.
My recommendation is just don't go anywhere. That's kind of how the conversation's been for the last 10, 15 minutes. I don't think we've talked about what we need to. I propose we move on. There's some people that are here waiting for other discussions, and they've been patiently waiting. So if we could either get to the point, discuss what we need about access, or move on. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. So the area we're gonna talk about this time was between 700 and Pocket Mill Road.
Well, you kind of got all your, I think really the only question besides your existing access is your commercial zone right there.
Yeah.
Is Darwin's lot across the street that he just sold from the Virgin Goods, is that also commercial, zone commercial?
It is not currently
No.
commercial, but it is eligible for it.
Yes. Yeah, well, it goes in California.
So if we, so one thing about this section is that big ditch in this section. And when I spoke with UDOT about the traffic study and the speed limit, I also spoke with them about this bit and how we could get that smoothed out. So from about, even before 700, we're about 700 through that dip is really hard. Anything turning right or left between 700 and that dip is really a difficult turn because you can't see, there's not a lot of visibility. They said that we could submit for a grant. I can't remember what type he called it. He had a specific name for it. Yeah,
It's a project, a special project.
special project grant where we would try to, where they would pay some and we would pay some, and it didn't act like that was that project was gonna be high on their list. But I think it's something we should still pursue and push for, is smoothing out this section of the road.
The squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Yeah, well, I'm not gonna squeak.
No. I heard drama.
Okay. Anyway, so I think that would be part of our master transportation plan, would be smoothing out this section.
Why?
Just so that it improves visibility for people turning on and off the highway in that section.
Just for the same reason in the last meeting, you brought up that that's the only intersection that we've really had accidents in Virgin. Just to, so there's better visibility, so we don't continue to have those accidents.
I only know of 2 major accidents in Virgin, and one of them was at 700.
At 700.
So if we smooth that out, we'll be able to reduce those.
You're saying it would allow people driving on the highway to be able to see traffic slowing down or a car stopped, something like that. Or you could put in 3 lanes and a center lane so that people can turn left and turn right.
So it was turning right.
Well, there was,
Or was it turning left?
it was turning left. So she and Bob were stopped at 7th signaling to go left to their house. And so somebody probably speeding and not paying attention ran into the back of her.
That was my
I wasn't. So I hear what you're saying, and I think what you're addressing is what I'm concerned about, and that is the traffic that's going to be coming on and exiting UDOT is just going to get busier and busier and busier. As you put in the Red Rock Roasting Company or whatever it's called, where are they going to park? Are they going to park behind it? Are they going to park in the park like Diane is afraid they'll do? Are they going to, where are they going to turn into it? How are they going to slow down for it? When there's 4 lanes, like down in Laverkin, you got 4 lanes and a, do you have I don't even think you have a center turn. Is there a center turn there?
Yes.
Yeah, maybe there is. But you have 4 lanes, then you got enough way that people could turn on and off the road. But here we don't. And as we grow through here with commercial stuff, and you have so many people facing it, exiting and coming on into private property, I just don't see how 2 lanes can handle it unless you have a lot of deceleration lanes, I think 3 lanes allows for cross exiting. And that seems to be almost a necessity.
And that's what there is in the middle of town, right?
Right, like there is in the middle of town now.
Right, is that what you're talking about?
So why not do that out at 7th? I don't know that you want it, that you need to do it in the dip but maybe you do if the dip gets filled. I'm not an engineer and I can't imagine how difficult that might be to fill the dip, but I guess you just build a dirt bridge.
So I don't think that they're going to fill the whole thing.
Just
but
bring it up a
bring
little
it
so
up
that
some
it's
so that we-
visible. I think that makes sense. I think it's a good idea.
So
So-
would you, are you thinking that from 700 or 775 west, you're thinking maybe we want to do 5 lanes through this section of town?
I don't know because I'm not an expert, but I'm thinking that we have to look at and get the cooperation and the advice of the experts, and see what there is to handle that traffic as we grow commercially. And as our citizens come on and off that road, how is it best for them? I guess the center lane helps them, basically, if they're coming onto the road, but coming off the road, it can get dicey. If you're going fast and you're trying to pull onto First West or something like that, there really isn't a place to turn. The potholes on the edge of the road and dirt but am I ahead of myself here and thinking?
No. That's the question that I think we're looking at.
So you're saying when you say 5, maybe 3 that have cars on them, a center turn lane, 2 traffic lanes, and then 2 others on the side for deceleration and acceleration.
When I say 5, I mean you have, just like through the work, you have two lanes of traffic going each direction and then the center turn lane. So that's.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think we're there for that. I don't want to see everybody hurrying through.
Gentlemen, with all due respect, yeah, I think we need a work meeting on this, this road thing. Separate work meeting on this. I think we need, it's important, and we need to spend this time and have those sessions. This where it's gonna be 3 in the morning, by the time we get out here, we have people waiting.
So you want to wait?
I don't know, we can hustle.
You want to move on?
Yes, please.
Are you okay if we move on, Kent? It is almost 9 o'clock.
Yeah, I'm fine with
I do
it.
think we need to spend some time on this.
I definitely think we need work. If we're going to do this plan on the road, we need advice. We need,
Invite people for a work meeting.
we need Wyatt to tell us where those roads go because he's so above me on that stuff, so.
All right, so we'll move on to our next item on the next discussion. Chapter 16.22, attached to CETA ordinance. These are discussion only items. So is the tax authority.
Can I make a suggestion that we move to 4, number 4 first?
Sure. We can, point of order, we can go to 4.
One of those reasons I'm suggesting that is we do have Rich Merced here this time. And we kind of continue this discussion. It'd be nice to hear exactly from him the purposes and reasons for the height issues. I did put together a couple of suggested ordinances. And these are just for discussion purposes. They aren't, I like to put them together and then get the input after they've been put together, and then make the changes, and then we move later to work to approve them, rather than gathering just information, making it perfect, and then getting feedback that we should have had previously. The first one is just suggesting that we change the height. And that 35 was the suggested height. It doesn't have to be 35, it can be whatever number we want it to be. Or leave it at that. The other one is a process that, so there's two different ones. The other one's a process that would give us the ability to have higher than 25 initially, but if you wanted to increase that, then you have to come to the planning and zoning and show the reasons why, whether your lot is, the topography on your lot is different. And I did have in this one, I said, like the surrounding height there, I meant elevation. So that's the only change that I would suggest in the other one. So I don't know if you guys have those copies in front of you. Yes. Or not. And I left my copy in my other bag, so. Let me pull that out, but those are the two directions. I just need direction from this group, which way we go, because I submitted these to our lawyer way back on the deadline I was supposed to, and nothing happened, so here we are today, looking at it again, and then it will be ready to submit again, and then we can have a public hearing, which I was hoping we'd have a public hearing previous to it. But,
Right off the bat, 35 feet on top of that mesa over there is really, really tall. That's tall.
So, again, maximum height.
Yeah.
Not
that's tall.
everybody may do this. So just because we have it doesn't mean, like, all the houses down in Little Valley being put in, there's not a lot of them that are over 25.
I would try.
But they have the ability to do 35.
Yeah, I think it's too tall. That's my initial comment.
The lawyer's comment, and I'll read that in there. Height regulation amendment, 35 feet is a pretty standard height limitation in residential zones. In the Hurricane Valley Fire District, has ladder trucks that can easily fight fires at that height.
I have a question. Currently it's 25. Do we have a 5-foot variance option on that?
No, the way this is written, you're gonna need to change it a little bit, because if you're putting bonuses, there has to be something that you're doing.
Can you put up the other one?
What, building floor?
He's asking if there's current,
There's not currently, no.
There's not current, there's no variance option currently, and there's no design review on residential homes.
So in my opinion,
Subdivision maybe, but that's between the HOA and the individual, but for a regular home, there is no design review with commission or the zoning administrator, other than that it meets the international building code. So I do address those two things, the bonus, any kind of bonus you're gonna need, you gotta have something attached that says, I'm getting this because I'm doing this, otherwise it's not really a bonus. And second, remove your design review by the planning commission, because planning commission doesn't review stuff in residential or residential zones.
Okay. The purpose for having something like this, either we just set the height, and we don't have to worry about it, they just meet that height or not, okay? Or we have some method that we can allow people to come in and say, hey, I've got an existing lot that's different than the surrounding ones, and I want to build a house with a higher pitch or something, but it's going to be at a general elevation around that. This would give us the ability to do that. Otherwise, they have to go to the appeal authority, which is a whole different can of worms. And I understand that that's the direction that is suggested by other authorities, but why are we giving that authority to some other group that's not elected and not representing our town? We need to be able to keep that here. Do we want to do this, or do we want to just change the height? Doesn't have to be 35, but the suggestions, the maps that we got, the houses, the elevations for a 40 by 40 square foot house, 27 feet was the minimum at a 312 pitch. I think that was I think that was the number, wasn't it?
25 for a 3-4 pitch. It was, you want, or 312. You want 412, then it was 27.
There we go. It was the bigger pitch, because the 312, you might as well have a flat roof at that point, it's still higher.
Do we have anybody here that wants to make a comment about this?
Did you want to comment, Mr. Merced? Sure.
Rich Merced. I guess if I was, which I'm not, in your shoes, and Gene's shoes, I'd say, how can we have the least amount of conflict about this when somebody comes in to do something? The vast majority of homes would not be 35 feet. They would be in the, I kind of looked around to see what's going on. There's 3 homes currently being built. All of them are right. They've either had to squish the roof down to meet the 25 foot, or they're right at 25 feet. Aesthetically, it doesn't look so pleasing in most situations. If you had 30 feet, you would eliminate about 90 or 95+% of any conflicts that it would be. I just measured the city building. It's about 30 something feet. With the chimney on the top, it's probably 33, 34. And so I'm just trying to, when you're putting a whole lot of money into a place to build, you'd like to have it at least look the way you think it should look without encroaching on other people's things. When I originally found out that this was an issue, I thought, well, I will talk to the Board of Adjustments. We'll have a variance kind of thing. I was discouraged from doing that severely. It says it's going to really cost you. And I thought, well, I didn't quite understand the purpose of that. If there was a kind of what I think of as a normal process to that, I probably would have done that. But this, where it's written that way, and I know of the 3 current ones that 2 have had, I don't know about the 3rd one, but I know 2 of them have had to have the roof squished down. You've talked a lot about, in the future, what's going to happen. Well, this is, the 25 foot is a kind of an archaic height because, people were having 7 and 8 foot interior walls. And so where you're having a 9 and 10 foot, which is more common today, it's just really difficult to make the roof fit unless it's going to be flat. And I don't think you're going to be an architectural control committee on people's roofs and, say, well, everybody has to have a flat roof or whatever. But I'm just saying, consider it. I thought when I sent my son-in-law to talk, because I couldn't be here, that somehow there was wheels in motion to see if there would be a public, I don't know what the name of it is, forum, hearing, whatever, so that it could be talked about and you can get some feedback. But I guess I wasn't correct about that. But anyway, that's just basically, I'm just saying consider it. I think 30 is, like I say, would eliminate a lot of people's irritation at the city. You won't see many 35, I don't think. Although I think if you look at houses built in the last 15 years that are 2-story in Virgin, I would bet if it has a full 2 stories, they're all going to be over 25 feet. Now, I assume this is an old ordinance, but somehow it didn't apply at that time. But anyway, I'm just saying, consider it. And if you are going to consider it, I'll basically stop building when I get the slab poured and wait to see what you decide, because I really don't want it to be the way it would end up being. And the other thing, just as a side note,
since you're in the planning business, think about natural gas and a sewer system, and having a less onerous Board of Adjustments or variance process. Anyway, appreciate it. Thank you.
They're talking about the sewer system. Hopefully everyone will. I know some people hate it, some people like it.
Comment. Thank you. I appreciate that input. My house we built a few years ago is 9 foot walls and ceilings. And it's under 25 feet. I'm guessing it's under 20 feet. I'm guessing it's probably 18 feet. But if you go from the street, it's probably 40 feet. We live in an area that's very diverse geographically. And so you're going to get these washes and hills and the dip and SR9, and you're going to get things different for each house that's being built. It's not like going out in Washington Fields to Little Valley where it was, hay fields and everybody's start is the same distance. Ours is different. And the development that we've had in the last few decades have built a type of home, nice homes, one level typically, and have met this code of 25 easily most times, I think, without much effort. And so I like the 25. I like the fact that we are saying what we want our town to kind of look like. Commercially, it's going to have bigger buildings like our town hall and our town office building. But that's, of course, grandfathered. But I mean, we'll have people that will be coming to us that will maybe want something that maybe needs some kind of adjustment, an abortive adjustment. Then my concern becomes, okay, first of all, how does everybody around there feel that's already there, that's grandfathered there? How are they going to feel about this? And that's my big concern about everything. And I remember neighbors where I live now who came to us after we built and said, you don't know how much we worried about what was going to happen. That there was going to be 6 kids riding their bikes up and down the street, or people with ATVs, or that somebody had built a 2-story, 25-foot house on top of the hill, and the mesa would be gone from our view, and all these different things. I think we first of all have to be cognizant of how our neighbors feel. And if we're going to make variances, that we have a way of notifying and letting those neighbors have a huge say in a process of variance, so that they, having that neighborhood that they've lived in, come and have a voice in any kind of a variance. They're notified properly, and maybe nobody will come. But if you have a variance, you have to do that. So I like the 25. I like the idea of our town being a town that has those kinds of homes, and not 10 and 20 and 10 and 11 and 12 foot, 30 foot high mansions. I like what's out in Rio de Sion. I like what's going on in the gardens and over off of 7th West. I think you can build beautiful homes with 25 feet.
I'd like to make a comment.
You're talking about 2-story homes?
I don't know if you can do a 2-story 25. It'd be not much of a pitch. You'd have to have a flat roof. But no, I'm just talking about I like the 25-foot zoning restriction.
So as someone who, like my husband and I would like to someday build, somewhere in Virgin, and this has been something that we've talked about. And one thing that is difficult is the ranch style home, or one level home is definitely appealing, but it costs more to build a one level home than to build it up. And like the gentleman was saying, you know, the 9-foot, 10-foot ceilings are kind of more desirable at this point. And that has been something that we've looked at with the 25-foot rule, is that does limit and make certain styles of homes unappealing. And where labor, materials, everyone knows is crazy right now, we could not afford to build a ranch style home because it costs more to build out than up. And we understand Virgin has, as far as I've researched, the lowest height in the area. For Rockville, Springdale, Tocqueville, et cetera, we're the smallest 5 feet in the area. And I like what you said on, you know, the geological, where everything is up and down, neighbors are over here, we're over there, and I agree that everyone is going to have a preference. If you move next door to someone who has a bunch of kids, and you have a bunch of kids, they're all going to be super happy and excited that they have new friends. Or if you move to someone who is quiet and reserved, same thing. So I think the 25 is too small for the type of world we're living in right now, and just material costs and trying to keep Virgin desirable for any and all. To what height, I don't know. I think the 30 is kind of a good compromise, to just kind of help a little bit to make it more attainable for those who want a little bit higher ceilings, a little bit more desirable roof, while still keeping it desirable and appealing to neighbors and being respectful of that, because that's always important. You want to be friends with your neighbors, so.
Thanks.
Anyone else have any comments?
Gene?
Go ahead, Sean, and then we'll go to Gene.
Most of the time when you're talking 25 feet issue, it's when you get the pitch of the roof, you talk about that. So when you're looking at a house, you're only this little section is going to be above that. Otherwise, if somebody wants 2 stories, they build a flat roof and they can go all the way up to 25 and they have this whole space that's covering the whole 25.
Well, it depends on which direction you're looking at the house.
But if it's 25 flat roof, it's the whole house, every direction. So really, we're talking pitch is the only part that's over that. So let's not get stuck in semantics.
Gene?
So since you guys last talked, I did some research as well. I understand what you're trying to, and I don't care about the height, I mean, I care. 25, 30, you guys can decide on that, and we'll see where it goes. But this stuff that you're writing here is an effort to bypass the variance thing. I did some research, they used to have Board of Adjustments everywhere, and the state came through, so we was eliminated. Because the Board of Adjustments has the ability to be swayed because you're residents of the town. So when you do this, you're doing the same thing, you're kind of bringing it back by saying, we're gonna let a commission, a group of people, listen to public hearing and make comments, whatever, and then it goes to council, and they don't like your project, you're not getting it. Whereas with a variance setup, yes, it costs, but you're getting a third party that has no skin in the game with the town. I feel like this is putting us backwards from where the state wants us when we start going through this. We start saying, well, you have to take into consideration the neighbors and everything else. Public opinion is gonna sway that, and the state's really pushed to get us away from those kinds of settings like CUPs and things like this where people can influence the decision versus a simple, straightforward look at it. Does that make sense? And just be cautious doing this, because I don't care about height personally.
Well, in my opinion, by having a set ordinance at 25 feet or 30 feet, whatever, then you know when you pay $200,000 for a lot, you're going to do your due diligence in knowing this is what I have to have before I build here. So it doesn't really matter what your neighbors think of what you're building. If you want to build your house and it meets the ordinances, then who cares?
But we are listed to need to make up our minds, we need to make good ordinances, and we need to keep them.
Honestly, I agree with Gene, because it should just be a reasonable amount, so that you don't have to go through a variance or board of adjustments or whatever. And you've talked about, this is a substandard whatever. To me, this is a substandard ordinance. It doesn't reflect current use by virtually every community around. And so make it 30 or 35 and leave out the board of adjustments or whatever. But it will allow for, like I say, like 90% of that, and then the other 10% will have to adjust their roof.
There's sure a lot of people who want to build here with the ordinances the way they are. That's just it's my opinion.
Just need some guidance. What do we want to do? Got it before us.
Well, I don't think we should have a variance committee. An ordinance.
I'm great with that. What I want. Okay, 35 is not on the table. What do we got?
Okay,
Just give me, is 30 good?
25.
You want me to write it at 30 and
25.
have a public hearing on it? That's where we get information and see what the public thinks. We should have been having a public hearing months ago on this already, but,
Months ago, John, don't exaggerate. We could have had a public hearing this month on this.
yes, we could have had it this, we could have had it on the, we had it on the discussed on the agenda. We could have had a
But
public
we didn't
hearing,
have an ordinance.
but we could have.
We had
Here.
some.
Anyway,
So let's, what do you want, 30? I'll write it as 30 and put it on public hearing, is that good?
That's fine.
Okay.
fine.
Move on.
Anybody want to do the variance thing?
No.
I kind of just wanted to write it.
No, I'm not gonna do that.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sean, are you gonna rewrite
Hey, Sean.
both of those ordinances?
No, one, just one. Sean,
The easy one.
Sean, be 35.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much for doing this. I know there's a lot of work. Thank you.
No problem. Exactly. what I'm spending my time.
I don't quote.
Yeah, speaking of time.
Go, item number 1 on the discussion, 16-22. Does everyone have a chance to read over this one?
Yep. Well, I have.
Did everyone see in this one, did you see the Utah State ordinance that was attached in the
Slideshow.
in the reason for change?
Yes.
So we're back next month for a public hearing. So if you haven't read the state ordinance, go ahead and read the state ordinance. That's why we're changing our ordinance. to state standards.
This is what section?
This is the chapter 16.22 attached to the ordinance. And you can see the Utah 10-9A 53-2-5.
Okay.
And sorry, conditional use. Others.
Any other
Really,
comments on this one?
the only thing you changed was that it must not be more than 50%. So it basically just allows them to have a bigger casita if they want,
If it's attached.
if it's attached.
Correct. Any other discussion on that? Dark sky. You wanna just let us know what you're doing with that? The dark sky.
I've got a pamphlet up on the table.
Okay.
Ken, I know you just asked me to do the picture, I actually read that article that you sent me, and,
Is there anything in our,
I don't think there's anything that, no, there's nothing.
oh, it's not, I don't have it on
Can
here.
you send us that article?
So basically, This month is, the governor has made April Dark Sky Month in Utah for the second year. Respect and value our, everybody I talk to in Virgin feels that way. Somebody's a Boston Red Sox fan. So part of the education system of working towards that and working towards a dark sky approach that's down is some of the pamphlets that Paul and I will be making available in education. So this is that article from Governor Cox. We have, I think, 5 or 7 national parks in the state, dark sky certified. We have, I think, 10 state parks that are certified, 2 communities that are fully certified, and lots of communities that are working to be certified. I mean, it wouldn't take a lot to put. You don't, it's not something that you have to live with then, you know, for the rest of your life. If you decide that you don't want to be Dark Sky Association certified, because that's who certification is, Dark Sky Association. So, but they give guidelines of how to do it. So I would, Paul, with people and hear their feelings about it, talk about why we value it and why I think most people I talk to in the community value it, talk about concerns of safety, costs of fixtures and compliance and stuff like that. So I just hope we can have those conversations. I think every one of us here love to look at the night sky here and in our area. So that's all that I wanted to mention. Grab a brochure. This brochure is about how dark sky affects the lives of animals that we're surrounded by, birds and owls and rodents and deer and migratory animals. Anybody have any questions about that?
If you look at this, this is just adding an exemption to the lot size for commercial for specific instances. Currently, the red is not in there, that would be the issue.
So what does this say in
This is just saying that
layman's terms?
if you have a lot smaller than 1 acre, but you're already eligible, but otherwise eligible for the commercial zone, and you are commercial property, you can rezone your property to commercial.
So this is basically just allowing for instances like their lot in the future. Just making an ordinance for it, to make it legal, or to make it more.
In my opinion, our ordinance does not allow their lot to be rezoned to commercial. In my opinion. So that's why I voted no on it.
Talk about
Where does it apply?
This is only the commercial zone.
So if somebody, but does it have to be which, like any side, can it be attached to any side, but this side?
It has to be otherwise eligible for the commercial zone.
Which.
So no, if you're
So it's
behind
also-
it, no, you can't, you're not
It's too far
eligible, because you're not on SI9.
Okay.
But if you're otherwise
Just
eligible.
thinking, Mr. Don't get up, Nancy, so we can go fast.
No, but you've been trying to rush me, so I'm not sure.
He's getting sleep.
Does it say in here also, to rush you, does it say that they have to be bordered or surrounded or?
It's. Abut an existing commercial,
On one side, 3 sides?
just abutting, so one side of the,
Okay,
Is it written in your ordinance that it still has to conform with the rest of the.
Yeah, it says lot requirements. And abut an existing commercially zoned lot may be rezoned to commercial.
I just skipped over that.
Only on SR9.
Yeah. Otherwise, yes. Or
I don't see it.
Or, yeah, only on this area.
Gene?
If you do it, when you do it, it's if you would do it to the date it's passed, not 2022.
Yeah.
So we would start breaking a bunch of lots, gain.
Gotcha.
Yep.
One more suggestion, it says lots, which is to say non-conforming lots. Just because then it refers back to our non-conforming use ordinance, which then ties in the setback issues and things like that. So it's not.
I don't know how I feel about this. My concern would be, could there be creep? In other words, could you commercially creep into zones that are not commercial? That,
No, because it has to meet the other requirements of the commercial zone. And one of the requirements of the commercial zone, it has SR9 frontage.
so, but it may be on SR9. Is everything on SR9 currently commercial? So we're saying here, everything on SR9 can be commercial if people so wish it, if landowners wish it.
Yes, provided it's stimulating certain which you would deny reason, yes. Excluding those irregular circumstances.
Have we had zoning, I apologize for your time. Zoning, or do we have zoning or had experience in this in the past? Other than the Red Rock people, that so if Ruggles wanted to zone his property commercial, he could.
Well, yeah, Ruggles is already zoned.
If Dan wanted to commercial, Snyder,
Dan's not in the eligibility.
because,
That's commercial goes to Pocketville Road.
oh, okay. It doesn't go beyond Pocketville?
It's from the west of town, or I think exactly reads from the furthest west zone commercial property. Furthest west zone commercial property to Pocketville.
If you put non-conforming in there, that makes.
Well, it's only a lot smaller than 1 acre, not just any non-conforming. Yeah.
I can't imagine anybody would want, well, okay, let's take another, I'm searching all these things. There's some homes right up here on SR9, this side, on the south side of the road, well, actually, I think they're more this way, just across the street from the post office building. There's 2 or 3 new homes down the street, and maybe it's over one, maybe it's First West.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, so
So can they zone their property commercial if they want to?
only if they had another commercial property, but in that, okay, so I'm looking at the map now in my head.
The eligibility is already along the highway, it's already there. There, you're on the highway, why can't they be commercial? So we're circumventing and we're making sure that they can do that. They can't. But anything along the highway can be commercial already.
Are we changing? Why are we?
Because some of them are smaller than an acre.
I see. So it's the acreage.
That's the only issue. Right. Red coyote. That's commercial lot. The lot that east of that is a half-acre lot. So what this would do would say, okay, you have a half acre next to a commercial development. You want to put something in. Now, as far as street goes, the next lot next to that is also half acre. So yeah, it could creep down the highway, but it can't keep creeping back.
So,
Which theoretically, we want businesses in the
so
commercial
can't
zones.
they request a variance to do this anyway, like we're doing?
So the variance, by the way our variance process is set up, you can only obtain a variance if you have a hardship that you impose on yourself. So if you bought a half acre lot in a zone that wasn't, and you already imposed that hardship on yourself because you didn't buy a full acre. So they would not allow that variance, in my opinion.
Specifically, in case we change that, there's ways to make it more specific. How many properties would this affect, possibly?
Probably a
Like
dozen.
3, a dozen?
Yeah, there's probably a dozen that are less than an acre.
Dozen less than an acre long.
There's none at Buffalo Trails, there's one, there next to Red Coyote.
There's some on the other piece next to Red Coyote, aren't that like a couple of lots though?
No.
The ones at the top of Mill Street, I know at least one of those is less, maybe
The
two,
only one is
is less than,
the other lot.
no, on this side.
Oh, yeah.
On this side, Melanie's, she has one there, and then one next to, I believe, right by the house.
So I would start on any just to say. For instance, and use
It already says pump sets on it in the ordinance.
That's in the commercial zone ordinance. That's in the-
All other requirements, those other requirements are.
All the setbacks, everything.
all other requirements of the
Mill
ordinance.
Street. There's one, two,
So we need one.
three.
Oh,
Sweet rest of them. Okay. Stop there tonight. Go ahead.
I count 10 just on this map.
10 on that back there that are non-conforming.
But they're all on the highway, they're eligible. Our ordinance is, questions we made there.
Great, what does great mean? I thought you were neutral.
We're neutral in some things.
We're neutral in how,
Not when it comes to making laws, you're not neutral.
just following them.
I don't know, don't find us here.
This is a different hat you
I'm teasing.
Yes. So if you add the non-conforming lots and the date.
I will- We'll bring this back for further discussion next meeting.
It's like there's 6.
I'll do some investigative work.
Yeah, let's see. To see the ordinance, this is what he said, we go back that far. I've reviewed the proposed concern with eliminating the size limitation on casitas. This is an extremely common practice among land use authorities, and if a casita so then it does not have size limit. Construct 2 residences in a single family lot. Okay. Yes, that is true, but we're gonna have to then in the state code.
But the state was.
The state code says that you can make no size restrictions based on house size of, an internal dwelling unit. So go to that one, the state code, and then
Yeah, but so
It was just passed in September.
Oh.
Yeah, so he
Probably is unfamiliar with it. And then dark skies, no comment. And then on lot size exemption, I like the proposed changes and it is well needed as the town has several non-conforming commercial properties which are substandard in the minimum size. Any commissioner comments?
just a suggestion,
Go ahead.
not that we want to, I wanna know work we want to do, work meeting, and we also have those definitions.
Put the definition off this one, but.
I just wanna get.
Let's not, let's do this.
That was suggested by the attorney, FYI, he was still reviewing this. Not to put
Ready to turn into it.
Who's reviewing the one you had prepared? You had
Yeah,
one
we
prepared.
had prepared.
The one with the passive aggressive email on it?
Yeah.
It's just like one definition.
No.
It's like 4 pages.
Alright.
We don't have to talk about that, it's just that, I just wanna finish it. So I can-
Can you have anything? You can prepare something for dark skies for us
So I need one.
Every month.
every month.
Okay.
And Julia?
I'm not.
Let's go home.
Okay, so, just, because you guys don't have enough to do, it has been proposed that we take a look at redoing our general plan. The general plan was completed 4 years ago. My initial assessment was, no. And see if you think that it needs completely redone, or if some sections need updated. If it doesn't, if you just with what it says, reason to redo it. Because, and I say that because it was done with a lot of public input and a lot of work done on it. Right. Sean doesn't like, because I remember about them. And there's gonna be things in there 100% in general, the general you. Right? So, see if it does need some work though, if you think that it does, you think it needs updating. I know of 2 sections that do for sure need updating. One is this master transportation needs updating. That does need updating in the general plan. We're not required to because we're a town. My understanding is we're not required to because we're a town, but we are encouraged to look at ways to promote moderate income housing, which is a new.
So much. Do you know how many funds are going into it?
I'm just telling you, moderate income housing.
Which is another one, another one for us.
It's just a new euphemism for low income housing, so.
It's another euphemism for.
Alright, so if they ask us, we don't have to do that, but we should look at that.
So we should, yeah.
If you see other things that you think are incomplete or need updating, just
only if it's not a personal preference. Okay.
Only it's not a personal preference.
When's our work meeting for the roads, for the traffic? You'll let me know.
You want to do a work meeting?
Like, no, you do. I can tell by that.
Meeting. When would you like to do a work?
You can always get in your folder, create a document, and email each other back and forth, and add your guys' comments to that document. And you guys can all work on a
We
document.
actually can't do that.
We can if there's one editor.
If
The
there's
rest of
one-
us only know.
But I'm just saying, like, if you, ultimately, you guys are supposed to be working on stuff too, just outside of this, not just in this meeting. You need to do your steps.
You can turn it.
Oh, Karen?
You can turn it right into me, I'll file it in the filing cabinet that I have.
Really? Oh, in the back of your car?
Just right out.
I moved that we close this meeting.
I have a motion to adjourn in a second. Ronald made the motion, Wyatt second, all in favor? Aye. Thanks, everyone.
Wait, not that.